Calling this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. We will follow the normal opening procedures, and then we'll have a public comment on matters not on the agenda. We don't have any kids here today, so I have to lead our Pledge of Allegiance ourselves. Oh, sorry. One thing before that. Trustee Sue, is there anything to report from closed session?
There's nothing to report from closed session.
Thank you. So opening procedures, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Item F2, looking to approve the agenda for this evening. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Joseph, looking for a second.
Second.
Who's that?
Sorry.
Trustee Irwin. Any discussion or changes to the agenda?
No.
Voting on approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as presented. Looking for public comment on people desiring to address the board on matters not on the agenda. This is a period for the public to direct questions or comments related to school business to the board and superintendent concerning matters not on the agenda. There won't be any action taken by the board unless matter is placed on a subsequent agenda. And we do follow protocols of 3 minutes per speaker on each topic. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
So my comment is on 2 items, one that's on the agenda and one that's not.
Okay.
I have to go out of town tomorrow for a family matter, so hoping you'll indulge me to let me do them in one for you can come.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Any?
I don't need a mic, do I?
We can certainly hear you.
We can hear you.
No, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Good point.
Fucking work to me. Okay, so I'm Mimi Willard. I'm a district resident and president of the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. Kentfield School District is a very well-regarded school district, and it is well supported by the local community, as evidenced by the fact that we have approved one of the higher parcel tax rates in the state. It's important as part of that contract to be fully transparent and to welcome the participation of all student families and the broader community to your board meetings. Currently, Kentfield falls somewhat short on 3 metrics. 1, agenda items being really well described and with the PowerPoints consistently posted both before and after the meetings. 2, complete easy access to the record of what transpired. The current standard is Zoom or the equivalent with video. And thirdly, to the ability of people to fully participate in meetings in real time. These problems are all intertwined. By deciding not to continue remote access with real-time video and public comment, you wittingly or unwittingly disenfranchise many people on it. It's an equity issue because you're excluding families who work or have childcare responsibilities, people with disabilities, and people who don't drive at night. In addition, you create a flawed record. And some of it seems almost intentionally so, in that it's unusual to go to audio only because it makes the viewer unable to tell who's speaking. They can't tell if there are PowerPoints that they can't see, though some of them do show up. And in effect, what happens is that the record becomes so flawed as to really become useless. So I pose to you 2 questions. One is, what do you have to hide? And number 2, what or from whom are you hiding? I think that the answer is nothing, in which case all of the shortcomings that I have identified are easily corrected. So I really hope that KSD will line up to its avowed commitments to equity, inclusion, diversity, and transparency, bring back Zoom for remote participation and a complete, accurate record, turn the cameras back on, and open the Zoom lines for remote public comment. I think if you welcome the community to participate and they can know what occurs in your meetings and in your fine schools, that people will continue to reward you with their support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Items not on the agenda? Okay, moving on to item H, recognition of new and newly tenured staff.
So we have two quick slides to share. Let me put this up on the screen and shared with those that are on our Zoom. If we have any. So what I want to start with, we have one teacher this year that we will be honoring as our newest tenured teacher. And you're going to see a picture of her in just a tad. I'm going to tell a little story. So I actually went and visited her classroom today and checked in with her and let her know that the board would be honoring her tonight as our only tenured teacher for identified new tenured teacher this year, Maggie Harris, science teacher here at Capital School. And that's Honey, very famous dog who tends to sport really flashy bows. But the thing about Maggie, if you've had the opportunity to visit her classroom, it is a dynamic, very, very positive, engaging space for kids to feel safe and comfortable. When I visited there today, she wasn't in her classroom when I arrived, but I saw the starting of a lesson that she had up on the slide deck. And part of it was the agenda. And in it, she had a little take 5, which was a strategy she had heard from her sister, who's a student teaching over at Basage, who learned from Maria Martin, the principal over at Basage. And she was using it to help support the connection with students as they enter her space. And then she had, or the classroom space that they share. And then she had a lesson related to a study guide the kids were working on. And it was just, welcoming and exciting, and it made you happy about science. And then I talked with her a tad. She arrived a little bit later and she shared with me that this year she is trying a new strategy, a design lab challenge with her students to really try to promote kids kind of extending their learning, where they actually get to design labs that students in the classroom would participate in through the scientific method. And so she's got the smile on her face, this real enthusiasm about teaching science. And I just feel so lucky to have her in our school district. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to Grant Althouse, because I think he would like to share just a few words. As I left her classroom, there was a group of about 5 boys that were sitting right outside. And I walked up to them and I was like, "Hi, hey, are you guys waiting to see Miss Harris?" And they were like, "Yeah." And they kind of giggled, And I was like, "So was she your teacher?" "Yeah, she was our teacher." And I said, "Well, go ahead and go on in. The door's open." And I watched them walk in and they're like, "Hi, Miss Harris." It just spoke to, these were kids that she got to teach last year, and they still have that connection. And so she is just one example of the bright educators that we have in the Kentfield School District. And so I'm just so thrilled to be able to honor her this evening. So Grant, I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I would just say that Maggie really represents exactly what we're looking for in an educator at our school, in the way that she creates a climate in which kids feel safe and that they can be themselves, but they also have this incredible curiosity in the science that she presents. It's a laboratory-based science classroom that is very common to see children back at the lab tables, using their hands, discussing scientific phenomena, and really supporting our 7th graders and documenting their findings in their science notebooks and in their lab journals, and really applying the mathematics and literacy to their exploration of the curiosity of sciences. And what happens is that kids fall in love with science and they adore her as their teacher. And actually, both of the last 2 years, I've had 7th grade advisory students, and it was interesting to me that in the spring of both of the last 2 years, students in my advisory asked, "Can Miss Harris move up to 8th grade?" Which I thought was interesting. I don't think I spoke for her actually. So, saying it in a public forum, that I think just really shows the connection. Like, they want to have her in their lives, which for kids who may not find the same joy in school and those that might be like intrinsically motivated for learning, the joys and the relationship and the connection. We talked about that. And if you're not performing in school for your own kind of academic benefit, sometimes students will perform in school for their teacher. And Maggie creates an environment in the science classroom where scientists, they want not only to learn, but they want to make sure that she's impressed and pleased with their investment and engagement. So I could go on and on. She's a real treasure to share in our community. I'm so thankful that she's a teacher in a science classroom. She's also the department chair this year, and so she's supporting the entire science department and one of the teacher leaders that gets to take a role that really supports broader initiatives and can really spread the good work and professionalism that she brings to school every day to impact even more classrooms across our school. So very excited to celebrate Maggie and her tenure this evening.
And so the next thing, just a brief, and you know, if you were able to hear about or join our back to school event on August 17th, it feels like forever ago now, but we do have some new staff that have joined the Kentfield School District. For Basage, we have a new administrator, we have some new classified support staff that's in permanent positions as well as extra hire positions. We have 4 certificated teachers or special education departments new over at Basage. We have some new members to our 3rd grade team, 1 long-term substitute. And they've been phenomenal. We have a new assistant principal who gets to be at our board meetings. I know she loves it. And so just really great folks over at Basage. And then at Kent, we also have some new team members. What's interesting about Kent is there's some new classified support staff. We also have our food service assistants, that's the district-wide positions at both sites, but 3 new certificated teachers, extra hire support similar to what we have over at Basage. And also at Kent, there were some transfers. So we have people that were in teaching core classes like math and science, or might have been teaching an enrichment class and are now teaching math, or now teaching art, or teaching PE. So it's just really great to see some of those changes. I actually popped by the art classroom today, and Mrs. Moretti is doing some clay and some ceramic work with her students in art. So it's just exciting to see that change and that passion of our educators. So we're really quite lucky. So I don't know if Grant or Maria want to say anything about their new staff, but I just wanted to highlight some of those changes.
Sure, I'll start. You know, I feel really lucky to have attracted the new staff that we have, and I think that we attracted them because of who we are. One of our new staff members has more than 2 decades of experience and in our county, and she's like about 9. Yeah, she had a conversation with Paul and had a conversation with me that was very similar, and some of what she said is like, it should realize that working at an elementary school be like this, and in a very positive, good way. And so we just feel so fortunate. She brings so much experience, and then she's super happy. And obviously, when you have staff happy, it trickles down to everything that we do for our students. So that's just one example. And our long-term sub is just, I was in there today, and she's just so connected with kids and smiling and hitting the ground running, and our collaboration on the team levels is very supportive of new team members. So, having 2 new team members of the 3rd grade team might seem like it might not go off so well, but it's completely smooth because there's a level of collaboration that's just an expectation in our model that we support each other. So, so really fortunate. And then our learning center is really looking beautiful, and they started regular schedules for students to visit the learning center just this week, and so that's going.
So at Kent, I would just echo what Maria said as far as just our real excitement to welcome the staff members that we welcomed, and the ability to do so, and to support, like Raquel had mentioned, the transition of one of our teachers into a totally new area professionally for her, but an interest that she's had for so long. Excuse me, and being our teacher, and she's really thriving in that environment. We have some exceptional new teachers, an English teacher, Leslie Lusick, a new science teacher. Sorry, you're about to like. James Stryker and a new Spanish teacher, Jessica Lisa. It's good. It's been great. And we'll hear more from me a little bit.
Well, just if I could from the board, one of our big mandates is to attract and retain quality staff. And it's thanks to all you guys and KTA and KESPA and KIC and PTA and everyone and site administration, as well as the district office, that we are fully staffed and with people that like being here and to have longevity. It's not, working with the California School Boards Association on statewide stuff. I'll tell you, being fully staffed with staff that are motivated to be here and doing such a great job. It's a real it's a testament to what a good system you guys have set up. So thank you for that. And moving on to district reports. Right? Okay, so we'll start with a finance update from me. We're going to be hearing a little bit about finance a little bit later today. We've got our unaudited, and that's setting us up for the first revise. And we are the interim, and it's important as we look at these things that we need to understand how different moving pieces and different moving parts from Sacramento to MCOE to stuff in our own district, it impacts it. So you'll be hearing more from me at the next meeting about sort of where we are in finance and sort of where things are headed. And we will hear from employee organizations. I think KTA is first on the list.
Good early evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know, I think everybody still does know me. Warren Fields, elected president of the Kent Teachers Association. I am proud and honored to represent warm, welcoming, and inspiring teachers like Maggie Harris. Tonight, Kent teachers do not have a presentation program.
Thank you, Warren.
I'm feeling a little deja vu. It's been. I'm Gretchen Harris. I am the president of the Kentfield Education Support Professionals Association. And school rules. I just want to talk about school rules. Rules are good for the students, and the rules are good for us. Rules keep us safe, and rules help keep things fair. Rules help keep things equitable, and rules help keep things equal, and rules help keep things moving. And as many of you know, the Kentfield School District and KESPA are meeting tomorrow for mediation. And we are looking forward to, a little bit anxious, but happily following all the rules that are prescribed to help us keep moving forward. And we look forward to a productive meeting tomorrow. And thank you for all of your time and patience. And again, this time I'll say school rules.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear from a couple of community members. I think we'll start with KIC. No, I see you back there.
Hello, everyone. Since I wasn't at the last meeting, just kind of welcome back to school, everyone. The welcome back nights at both campuses were just really impressive. So thanks to Maria, Grant, all of your teams. Great way to start the school year. And speaking of teachers, I know just as a parent, being able to meet my new teachers, meet all 7 of my 6th grader teachers at Kent, just really impressive. And also for fundraising, that's probably the best way to kick off the school year, because all the parents are reminded of how amazing all the teachers are and all the staff of the school. So what a great start to the school year. Also to just recognize some key accomplishments from KIC from last year that are carrying us into this year. We raised over 1.1 million net in fundraising dollars last year, which was really strong. And of that, $1 million were put right into the district budget to fund enrichments. And we also funded a lot of extras last year, to name a few, the basketball hoops over at Basich, the track at Basich, the Kent Library refresh. We launched the drama program on both campuses, which we're going to continue this year, and some other items too, which we're proud of. And it was a record funded need last year, over $120,000 raised for devices, which have already been deployed into the schools. So that's an example of kind of a perfect scenario, direct funding where, we just raised the money in the spring and the kids are already realizing the impact. So really great to see that. And that's setting us up for really, hopefully a great year. A lot of momentum going into this year for the community and for KIC. Our commitment this year, we raised from 1 million to 1.1 million, if you guys looked at the budget. So we're also really proud of that achievement. That's the idea, to raise the commitment to meet the increased needs of our district. And we have a net fundraising goal of 1.2, with the idea of hopefully raising the commitment again next year, again, to meet the needs. And to do that, we're going to be focusing, both on increasing dollar amounts of donations and through participation. So yeah, we're trying to do it all. You may have noticed we increased our family giving ask, which is just a suggested amount from 2,000 to 2,200. And we're pushing those families in the community that have the extra funds and are willing and engaged to consider donating more. And also we're going to be working more this year to increase participation. And we're trying to do our best to make sure that the community knows throughout the year that any dollar amount helps, whether it's $100 or the family giving ask or 10,000, right? So we're going to do our best to try to increase that participation amount this year through other things as we go through fundraising, like participation challenges that grade level that where you can participate regardless on the amount. So we're going to be working on that this year as well. And the whole new board is staffed and ready to go. We've got all the areas covered. So that's great. We've got a lot of new board members eager to help out and jump in. And early fundraising so far this year, I don't have any numbers to report yet, but it's going really well. A solid start to the year, just based on the letter we sent out and some donations after the welcome nights and so forth. And coming up next for us is Family Fun Day on October 1st over at Basich. You guys all know about that big community event, and that's going to be fun. We just sent out the flyers last week. It's very well advertised in the community, and that should be a good one. And we'll also be sending out some more information for other families to participate. It's a good way too for new families to volunteer for a shift or two and meet other families and get involved. And then following that, we'll be diving into the bulk of our family giving campaign in October and November. So that's when we start emailing and doing more outreach and calling families and bringing in those dollars for our kids. And let's see, in other news, the drama program second annual, which is KIC funded, just launched this week at Basich with the 10-week drama course for all second and third graders. And so I wanted to thank Maria and the whole Basich site for their coordination and efforts to get that going. That's really exciting. And the Kent musical, funded by KIC as well, has just started today. Actually, was the first rehearsal, and it seems to be going well so far. We had some change ups this year with a fall musical and with new staffing. So also want to thank you. You've been really supportive, and Wendy and the whole Kent site team. I know this will become easier in future years. Right now we're still all learning together, and so it's kind of an all hands on deck situation. For example, Ramiro came and helped me open the gym this weekend. Like it's all hands on deck. The facility staff, the front office, everybody's been very supportive in helping the program get started. So think that's it for today. Yeah,
That's great.
Great.
Great
Thank
work,
you.
Noah. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. And thanks to you and your board for working so hard on all this stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you that my 8th grader is very grateful for the new computer this year.
Oh, good.
Because he was one of the grades that had the really old ones last year. So anyway, he was thrilled.
I know, I
Yeah.
got complicated hearing about like the load times and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to section J1, district update from Raquel.
Just to note, PTA is not gonna be here.
Oh, sorry.
today.
I thought that, and didn't say that loud.
Yeah. They were at our last meeting, and so, we're not didn't have anything new to report, so.
Okay.
We're choosing not to be here tonight, so, okay, so I have a slide deck that I'm gonna just run through, and I don't have a whole lot. We have some pretty big presentations that are gonna happen in just a tad. Oh yeah, I just screencast to room 1. And so what I want to touch on is the workshop that the board had on September 1st. Is going to be the big thing that I'm going to talk about today, and then I'll hand it over to the principals to give an update. So we met on September 1st to set direction and priorities for this school year with the board, and then we'll be back together in early October. We'll hear from the sites. They'll give their update. Damian Lee from Greystone West is here to give an update on our facilities and the facilities needs assessment that he did. And then later on in the action agenda, we'll be touching on the unaudited actuals, and Michael will be giving a presentation on that. So I'll be brief. So the board came together for a workshop on the first special meeting that we had, and this is something we've done on an annual basis, really to determine where do we want to focus for this school year. And so just the reminder, this is a slide that I've used multiple times with the board and with the community, and just emphasizing our core beliefs around diversity, the diverse community in which we get to serve, inspiring our learners, inspiring our educators, inspiring our community, and then leading it all to connection. We heard a little of that tonight, just around our tenure teachers, our new staff, our union groups, and also from our community foundation, and just the importance of the connection that we have as a community. And that leads into the goals that we have. So we have 4 goals that are outlined in our LCAP, and as well as our strategic plan. And the first one is around every learner and being sure that we're doing everything we can for every child to meet their maximum potential. And that is for a child that might need a little bit more because they may be struggling in an area in the academics, or a child that needs to be challenged a little bit more, so that they can continue to be inspired in their learning. Next, we have to support our staff, and that's just this notion of being sure that our staff are excited to be here, that they feel like they're supported and get what they need from their site administrators, professional development, compensation comes into play, and so that they really can live out their passions in this work environment. Fiscal solvency, just the importance of maintaining this notion of fiscal responsibility, and that's really what that means, is this notion of being responsible with the finances in which the board is really responsible for based on the community. And that lines into our facilities, which we'll hear a little bit about tonight. And then the last is around community. And again, I reiterate the connection piece. So the reason these are different colors is because my second year, we identified every learner as the area of focus for us as a team. And so that was in 21-22. In 22-23, we layered on community and just really wanted to focus on community, but maintain that every learner. And so what I recommended to the board at our workshop is that as our 3rd year together as a team, is that we focus on support to our staff. And what are we doing to continue to keep our staff engaged, to keep our staff inspired, and really be sure that we're maintaining an environment in which they want to show up every day, just like we want to show up every day. And so the question is, what does that look like? What does supporting the staff look like? And so some of the key elements that are identified in our LCAP is really being sure that we have a competitive compensation, right? So that we stay in a top quartile related to the salary in which our staff receive. And it's talking about their salary as well as the benefit packages they have. That we respect and acknowledge those that are working with us. And that's by just specifically identifying things like, gosh, that was really exciting to see the way in which the students feel connected with you and standing, a year later coming and visiting your classroom. Just hearing those things, it really inspires folks to continue in the work that they're doing. Being a presence in the classrooms and on the sites. This year, I'm getting to meet with the principals on a weekly basis, where I used to meet with them one-on-one once a month. We had various kinds of meetings, but this year I'm actually meeting them once a week. And that's in an effort to also try to be on the campus. And then our principals and our assistant principals are also following through with an approach called the breakthrough coach, where they're pushing into classrooms. Our assistant principals 1 day a week, I think, are the Mondays, and then our site principals 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays are in classrooms all day long, which continues to be something that I think we as a system should really promote and share that information out there, because that's not something you see everywhere. So having that presence, because I think that tells our staff that we really value and respect what they're doing day in and day out. Having the listening sessions and exit surveys. So really being sure that we're getting the feedback from our staff about what their experience was like being an educator on our campus. And when I say educator, I mean all levels of educators, whether you're a classroom teacher, if you're a food service support person, if you're a custodian, if you're a paraprofessional, if you're a front office staff member. It's just really important that we're hearing from our staff about how they're feeling, how they feel about the work in which they get to do. And then those that have decided to separate from us, trying to be sure we get that feedback. And so just this week, we sent out via email a letter to all of the staff that separated from us last school year with a survey for them to complete. So they have until November 1st to provide that. It goes to any staff member that either resigned or retired from the organization. It does not go to a staff member that may have been released from the organization. And so we'll see how many of those we get back. We'll do a follow-up midway through to see. They've been given the option to either fill out the survey and submit electronically, or they could contact a person in our personnel department and actually answer the survey and type that up. So these are just kind of different ways that we envision supporting our staff and wanting to share with the board. These were the things that we've talked about, let our community know this is going to be the focus for this school year. And then kind of closing my presentation with just the areas of interest the board identified when we spoke. So one is just maintaining that progress monitoring and being sure that there's times during the course of the year in which there's reports from our teams about how are our students progressing, and our interest is really seeing the growth that's happening with their children. And so I think December is a time frame where we'll hear that, and again in the springtime from our sites. Social emotional well-being. So that was one thing that was talked about, is just really trying to see how are we talking more about what are the services that we're offering on our school campuses. And so one of the recommendations was to adjust one of our showcases so that we would have a showcase that highlighted the counseling, the social emotional supports, the SEL programs that we offer. Going back to that notion of fiscal solvency and transitioning that to fiscal responsibility and facilities. And so again, we'll hear from Damien tonight. We'll also hear from Michael related to our finances and where we stand. And then the fourth area of focus and interest is around diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I feel like at our last board meeting, we heard a lot from both Maria and Grant about just the ways in which there's this intentionality about being sure that when kids show up at school, they feel like they belong and that they're part of the community. From, recommending a particular club to have at lunchtime, to initiating Start with Hello, which is a program that the team over at Basic will be doing. I think it's next week, or maybe it was this week. I don't know, next week. And then we have our first equity and inclusion meeting, I believe is next week, that both Maria and Grant will be facilitating. And one of the things the board had asked me about, and I had not yet had a chance to follow up with our team, is just kind of taking us back to the profile, the KSD profile. Where are we with that, and how do we see that continuing to unfold within our school district? So, anyway, so it was a very productive opportunity together as a team. We continue to plan to meet on like about a monthly basis, just to see where we are and highlight areas that are kind of raising to the top that we really focus on as support. So, any questions or anything? Okay. With that said, I think we're ready for the principal presentations.
So I'm seeing basics first.
Hello, good evening. Nice to see you. Maria Martin, principal at Basic. So today actually marked our first full week for all at Basic, because we launched this school year, something we've done for a long time, though we are revisiting it for next year, where our youngest students in TK and K have early dismissal for the first couple of weeks of school. So this week marked, everybody's there 5 days a week for their full bell schedule. So we're excited about that and to get to that point. I wanted to start by talking about some WIN groups that have just launched. So as you recall, this is something that we added to our schedule last year. WIN stands for What I Need. And it's a grade level block of time. There's no new instruction during that time. And when Cass and I put together and refined our paraprofessional schedule for this year, we really prioritized WIN time as when we wanted grade level teams to have access to multiple paraprofessionals at the same time. So each grade level has at least the number of paraprofessionals that equal the number of teachers at that grade level, and in most cases, one more. So if there are 4 teachers at a grade level during their WIN time, they have 4 or maybe even 5 paraprofessionals. So it allows them to run a number of small groups during that WIN time, not just groups taught by the teachers, but the paraprofessionals can also support some groups. So this week marked the launch of 2nd grade and 4th grade WIN time, where they looked at data and identified based on that data, putting students into groups in the areas of need. Today's Tuesday, so it's a coaching day. So it was a day where I was out in classrooms all day and got to see a 2nd grade WIN group that was utilizing our new math intervention program called Do the Math. And so each grade level, we've trained 2 teachers in Do the Math. So we have 2 WIN groups dedicated to math intervention. The group I happened to go visit today was considered the students who need the most support in math in 2nd grade. It was a group, I didn't count, but it's less than 10 students with a teacher. And it was really impressive because not only was it math intervention, but it was so, the teacher was so clearly using our language development strategies, those kind of multimodal systems of, motions and visuals. And some of the students are language, EL, emergent bilingual students, and others are just needing support in math. So it was really great to see. There was a lot of language focus. They were just simply learning the concept of addition and what that means, and which it includes some significant vocabulary, add-ins and equations and sum, and so learning all of that language. But because of the WIN time, it was able to be this small group from kids in multiple different classes getting access to this curriculum. And in future days out in there, my coaching days, I'll visit some of the other groups. So there's also extension groups, kids that are ready for more. There are groups where kids just need a little bit more practice with what they've been recently working on. They also have a phonics group and a writing group in 2nd grade. And 4th grade also has launched their WIN groups, and they're all math related. So they have the intervention groups, they have some reinforcing of concepts, extension, and then they have this focused strategy group taught by one of our paraprofessionals who's a long-term, Chris Rosenberry. He's been in 4th grade as a paraprofessional for a very long time. And caveat, when I was a 4th grade teacher, whenever I had a substitute, because I knew I was going to be out for the day, I would actually, in my sub plans, I would say Chris can teach the math lesson. He's that skilled. And so he's running these strategy groups where it's like they've identified a particular math skill or strategy that these kids need some more support in. And he's leading that group. So really excited to see the great work happening in WIN. In the phonics kind of reading area, our 1st and 2nd grade students are all, we're utilizing a core phonics assessment, and it's being supported by our reading intervention teacher, Katie Knopf, and our literacy coach, Yvonne McCord. So we're getting some real great usable data specifically around their phonics skills. It's data that our old system, well, old, but still kind of current, Qantas and Pinnell assessments don't give us that level of phonics data. So I'm super excited that those two teams are being supported by those additional staff people, and we're going to be able to utilize that data to help them get going with their WIN groups as well. Our literacy coach is also working with kindergarten. They're interested in exploring the use of a program called UFly, which is an open source program out of the University of Florida, a structured literacy approach. And so all the resources are accessible online and free. And so they're getting support with from our literacy coach to work to implement that. Literacy coach also, we're keeping her really busy. This is a 0.4 position, by the way. So she's also supporting our couple of fourth grade teachers in particular right now. Fourth grade is using Wordly Wise, which is a vocabulary program. But Yvonne is working with them on really using that program, but from a more word study morphology approach. And morphology is really being able to break down the words and understand the meanings of the base word and the prefix and the suffix, which isn't kind of naturally part of Wordly Wise. So we're taking this book that we have and all these great word lists, but we're adding this component. So that's really exciting to see that happening in a couple of fourth grade classes, and I think it'll trickle out into the others. Some upcoming professional development that we have still coming in this area of reading instruction. We're calling them learning labs with Christy Martinez, who works at MCOE, and she put on our professional development that we did during work week. So she's coming back to us 2 more times to do these learning labs, which the first one is a K2 focus on using decodable books and how use of decodable books can support phonics instruction. We were fortunate to be able to purchase some decodable books for our K2 teachers to use and share and this year. So thank you for funding that. And this learning lab is, so there'll be about 8 teachers. It'll be a school day, 8 to 3. And so they'll get release time, we'll get substitute teachers, and they will start the day with, kind of a classroom setting themselves, learning how to use decodable books. But then because of the student day, we'll be able to actually go into classrooms, work with groups of students and practice what we're learning on how to best utilize these decodable books. And then we'll have at the end of the day some planning time for teachers to kind of plan lessons so they can take this learning and be ready the next day to kind of implement it in the classroom. So I'm super excited about that. That's our first learning lab, and that's September 29th. Then we're going to do a second one on the focus will be on using multi-sensory approaches to teaching reading, and that will be open to K4 teachers. So this first one isn't applicable to 3rd and 4th grade. So let's see, what else do I have on my update? MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support. We have a relatively new team this year. So we had our first meeting. Maybe we've had 2 meetings, and we've really focused on kind of procedures, how we want to run the meetings, how we want to monitor students and keep track of students of concern. We had some information from last year, so we have students that were kind of on monitor watch lists. We also had some students that at the end of the year, the MTSS team agreed on next steps that we would take in the fall. So our new MTSS team is kind of getting up and running with implementing those things, whether it be an SST or an assessment for special education. So that's going well. We've also made a couple of little changes to the process from the teacher standpoint, which Cass and I will share out with the staff tomorrow at our staff meeting. It's really our first staff meeting since work week, because with back to school night and all these and conferences, we haven't had a staff meeting in a couple of weeks, so we're looking forward to that. Let's see, toolbox, we're continuing to implement that. Our next step there was to create a monthly calendar with, for the year with, the rollout of the different tools. There's 12 tools in the program. So Sarah Peteran, our school counselor, created a monthly calendar, which is, it's really well done because it not only says the tool, it says the purpose of the tool, the goal, what we're trying to achieve with this tool, has links to resources, activities to do in the classroom to with the students. And then I will be, you know, each month in one of my newsletters, I'll be sharing information out with the parent community about the new tool that we've introduced, and there's also some activities that that people can do at home. So I'll share those out as well. And speaking of the counseling program, so Sarah, the students call her Miss Sarah. She has been an incredible addition to our site. She is really eager and is starting to put things in place. She's going to, together with another teacher, run student council for 4th grade. This is something that we have not been able to put back in place since the pandemic. Peacemakers, she's going to get that going. Green team, so she has like one of these a week for the next 3 weeks. She's like, I'll roll out this one this week, and then I'll do this one. So green team counseling groups. She reached out to teachers before and after intake conferences to get lists of students that, you know, things may have come up in intake conferences that would suggest that a counseling group would be supportive of that student. So really appreciative of her being able to, you know, connect with teachers so quickly on that. So she's got groups that will be starting. The toolbox implementation support that she's providing. And then Raquel mentioned this Start with Hello. So this is a campaign that came out of the Sandy Hook tragedy, and it's all about inclusion and connection and avoiding, you know, preventing isolation and that students might experience. So the week of September 18th, so September 18th through the 22nd, we have a series of lunchtime activities. And on the very first day, the 18th, the idea is, it really is Start with Hello. So Sarah has mobilized a group of teachers who are interested in participating, and we literally are going to be like a welcoming committee, you know, out a car line with signs, and we're going to have a sign making party, I think, on Thursday of this week, and just, you know, really fostering a sense that we all belong here and we can make connections with each other. And it's as easy as just saying hello to somebody. And then some of the lunchtime activities include a buddy search bingo, a upstandergram, a letter of gratitude to a trusted adult. There's a pledge that the students can sign, and Wednesday is wear green. And I think green is the color for unity. So that's where that color comes in. We had our first principal chat and our first site council meeting yesterday. So principal chat in the morning, site council in the afternoon. And I would say the thing that really stood out to me in both of those meetings was the sense of positivity that was shared. So, you know, the principal chat, I had my slide deck and, you know, what's new, 23, 24 and all of that. And then just opened it up, what's on your mind. And to a person, everybody who spoke like started with something positive, and I didn't ask them to start with something positive, right? But the sense of like, wow, the year is starting off so well, and feels so good to be on campus, and all these volunteer opportunities for parents, and so just a lot of positivity. We got some feedback too, but both meetings, my big takeaway was how positive people were feeling about the launch of the school year. So yeah, we got some feedback on car line signups. We're gonna make a little tweak, which we already had talked about. I also want to offer Zoom in the future. I didn't have the principal chat set up as a Zoom. I did have translation, so Yvette Villarreal has all the principal chats on her schedule and will be there. And she also provided that feedback that sometimes the community that she works with, the ELAC community, prefers to attend these things on Zoom, and she can do translation hybrid live and Zoom. So, so that'll be something that'll add, in the future. Noah mentioned the drama program that started today. I also got to see that because it was a coaching day. And so I was out in a second grade classroom. And one of the things that was so great to see, so I had just been to this do the math lesson, second grade, like literally our 10, most struggling mathematicians in the whole grade. And then I go to a second grade class that has this new drama teacher. And one of the little girls from the do the math class was like front and center, like raising her hand, participating. They were trying to act out like tragedy and, just these different things. And it was just, it's just such a good reminder that students who struggle in one area, like they really can shine in others. And so the fact that we can offer such a robust enrichment program and, on top of that, a 10-week, drama program for our kids is just really important. So I'm grateful to KIC for funding that and making that happen. It's a little bit of a puzzle to make it work, but it's good. Let's see, what else do I have? I think I got it all. That's it. Any questions?
Just a comment, I heard the principal chat was a big success, so thank you for that. I know the community appreciates how much effort you put into making this successful.
Oh, and one thing I did announce there, and I'm working on, Lynn and I picked a date, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to do a parent math informational meeting. So I don't want to wait till my next principal chat, because those are monthly. So I think we found a Monday in 2 weeks. So what is that, like October 2nd or something like that? Lindsay Zerzan and I will put together a presentation just to kind of just be another place to inform parents about all that's happening in math at Basic, because there is a lot happening, and just a chance to explain the math pilot a little bit more in depth, and explain the math intervention a little bit more, and to talk about the Eureka Math program, because I don't want parents to wonder, well, if my student is not in a class that's piloting, what does that mean? And vice versa. So so that's what we've got in the works. Yes.
Oh, okay, I'll go. It's just quickly. I just wanted to say, first of all, it was really impressive to see how quickly and thoroughly you guys kind of listened to the research on phonics and you got it into the classrooms. And it sounds like, it's really part of every classroom and learning to read now. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And then also just your willingness and flexibility in trying new things with the interventions. We ask our kids to try new things and see how it goes. And so I appreciate that you're doing that as well. So thank you.
Just two comments. One is this general sense of positivity. I'm hearing it as well. So great job. I feel it as well as a parent. I think the second one is just like how quickly like the win groups. I mean, we're like, it's the first week of like full days, right? Well, at least, and it's just how we're not wasting any time. I just that takes a lot of effort and a lot of organization, and I can imagine how you all even did that, but it's just impressive to see.
Thanks. It reminds me of a quote. So I went not this past summer, the summer before. So the summer before I officially started in this role, I went to this amazing training at UCLA, and one of the presenters used this phrase over and over again, that the students are waiting. And I just keep that. They're waiting, right? They're here, they're waiting, and we don't want to keep them waiting. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At first I was thinking you were going to walk out. I was like, no, it's your turn.
It's great to see everybody. Sorry, I thought it tickled my throat right before I was going to talk about new people. We're really thrilled to welcome the new people that we have at Kent, and it's been just an extraordinary transition into the school year. And I think I mentioned last time, there's a little bit of a turnover in our faculty over the last couple of years. Many of the retirees that will be receiving requests for feedback are longtime people that have been at Kent that have since moved on. And so we have really fresh faces in each department. And then we have people that are stepping into positions of leadership. So as I mentioned, Maggie Harris as a department chair in science. We have Claudia Endaracato, department chair in Spanish, who replaced a longtime teacher, Rose Rubinian. You can just really see a culture shift. We have so many lessons learned from teachers that have moved on to retirement, and new ideas coming from teachers and their professionals that are doing. So it's an exciting time in the district and Kent. So I'm going to kind of frame my presentation this evening around just all things school climate, and then talking more specifically about academics. So I'll start with school climate. We've really seen a very hopeful kind of recalibration of some of the student mindset and some of the student behavior on campus at our middle school. As I think I mentioned last time, we were on this this steady journey back from COVID, and it really is starting to feel like some pre-pandemic times at our campus, just with the decorum of students in our classrooms and around our campus. That's been a really positive development that teachers at each grade level have noticed. Wendy and I have noticed in our own just presence around campus, and we're really trying to harness that energy and support and nurture it going forward. So to that end, we're currently participating in our annual expectation talks, where Wendy and I each go into the classrooms of the grade levels that we're most closely connected to. So I spent a good portion of the day in 7th grade working with our 7th graders just around expectations. And that, I often start this by saying, you might expect that you're going to be here talking about all of the school rules and the expectations that you follow. But we actually frame that discussion around the students generating what expected behavior they have for their peers. From their student perspective, what are kind of the expectations that they have for their teachers, and even what do they expect from their administrators and from their principal. And we kind of take that to launch into this discussion about what it means to all the contributing members in the school community, and how we can really bring about our best, both in the classroom and in the community as a whole. And so we talk about things from digital citizenship to bike safety on campus to attendance practices and everything in between. But one of the things that I think is likely most valuable is just creating a relationship between an administrator and the students that we get to work with, and learning them by name and learning interests that they have in their lives, and just having some time to spend time engaging with them. So we're hopeful that that's going to continue to nurture the kind of positive recalibration that we make here, and to set some really clear expectations for all of us about the different members of the community and how they expect that we're going to show up in this place of school. And so Wendy's supporting the 5th and 6th grade expectation talks. I'm working with 7th and 8th grade, and by the end of the month, we will have our advisory program is up and running, and I just wanted to highlight the first few advisory sessions that we've had. Last week, we discussed the grade level through lines, our 5th graders with dependence, our 6th graders with impact, our 7th graders with perseverance, and our 8th graders with legacy, and really asking our students to consider how these different themes show up in their lives, and certainly their school lives, and how they can anticipate how to bring about a real positive growth areas that we focus on. This week in advisory, we are doing our first social justice themed lesson, where we're going to ask students to consider different parts of their identity and how they are reflected or not reflected in our curriculum, as well as in this school that they spend so much of their time each day. And so what we're hoping to do with our students is to help them create a deeper understanding of their kind of intersectionality between identities, and how there are parts of our school that work really well and hard to try to reflect the diverse experience of students here. And there are areas that we need to and should be doing better. So part of this lesson is to ask feedback. Where do you not see yourself reflected in your curriculum, in your school, and how could we do better? And we're focusing on the student named Marley Diaz, who had started this program called with this initiative to bring diverse literature into the school where she attended just kind of as a touch point to say, you can recognize identity and the importance of identity in a school setting, and eventually move to action to say, what are you going to do about it? So we're going to try to create a platform for students to make some recommendations. What could we do to have a school that better reflects the students and their identity? And next week, we have our first open session in advisory, which is where we have a shared problem-solving session where students identify challenges that they may be experiencing in their lives, and their peers work with them to help come up with solutions to those challenges. So you can see in just those 3 examples, kind of the arc of social emotional learning that we're trying to present to our students, focusing on social justice themes, identity, and that notion of shared problem solving. Our clubs are really like exploding here at Kent. That club board gets longer and longer each day. We have many students attending many clubs, and massive appreciation to Wendy for her coordination of those clubs. Everything from Star Wars to, well, I don't know, there's a few unique ones out there. What's new this year, Wendy?
So Harry Potter is gonna be showing up.
Yeah.
We have an indoor soccer club where we got 6 kids yesterday, so it'll be 2 days a week. Of course, Dungeons and Dragons is coming back. Ferocity and computer construction club making its way back.
Oh, all right.
And
Oh, okay.
just carrying the torch. So
Oh, that's
somebody is such bright and, more than.
So that's, Rex Friedel started the
Yes.
computer construction club. I remember receiving an email from him the summer before his 8th grade year. And even though he has moved on, dare I say he left a legacy? That's the 8th grade through line.
There you go.
That's right.
So even that, that indoor soccer club, a lot of kids attended that. So I just wanted to highlight that not only does it provide a space for kids to connect on a common interest, connect with a staff member who's overseeing the club, it also eases some of just the stretch points and stress points on the unstructured time at school. If kids are going into the gym to do indoor soccer, then the areas that they would have been on campus just have a little fewer bodies, and it just makes it a little bit easier to supervise and perhaps feel safe around campus during that really important lunchtime at school. One of the clubs, although it's really more than a club, Student Leaders Anti-Racism Movement, starting this week on Thursday during study session. Wendy and myself facilitate that group, as well as some other staff members. Mari Schoenbrunn is going to be involved this year. Davis Casimir has been involved in past years. We have parents, David Song, that come to help with this as well. And this is really a student leadership opportunity for students who want to advocate for a school that reflects themselves, and to really create a voice for how we can break down some of the systemic racism that shows up in a lot of things that become a part of these systems that help run our schools. And so identifying what those are and help breaking them down. I'm really excited to welcome back our SLAM fam, as it's called. Dr. Watson will be joining us soon for facilitated half-day sessions with this group as well. And so I'm really excited to welcome SLAM back to the library. Our Student Leadership Board has also been established for this year. We have representatives in 5th through 8th grade. This is our refreshed version of Student Council, and Student Leadership Board is going to be taking on 3 specific focuses this year. One will be service, one will be spirit, like school spirit, and one is sanitation. So 3 entities. Sanitation being kind of cleanliness and kind of the greening of our school campus, and really making sure that we're following our green team and zero waste norms. But we're excited to see our student leaders take initiative with those 3 areas. And lastly, for school climate, athletics are up and running. We have some of our first games happening next week. And it's really exciting to see students express themselves through athletics. And as Noah had mentioned, our school play had their first rehearsal this afternoon. We have 44 Kent Falcons participating in Bye Bye Birdie. And there was definitely a buzz around campus as the roles were published yesterday, and kids were telling us which roles they had been cast in, and there was a lot of excitement about this chapter 2 in Kent People reality here at so much. So on to the academic side of the fence, I would just highlight something that both Maria and Raquel had touched on, and that is our commitment to administrative presence where the game of school is played in a classroom. And I just so appreciate my administrative partner, Wendy, in classrooms all day on Monday, me in classrooms all day on Tuesday and Thursday. And I do want to give, appreciation where it's due to Raquel for her willingness to restructure the way that we do business so that we can have 3 full school days out of 5 where administrators are not expected in meetings. And it's been incredible. I feel like I have an awareness around what's happening in each subject area, in each grade level, in different subsets of students that receive different services. There's just this level of awareness of what's happening in our school. And what that's going to lead to is an ability to have really clear, intentional conversations with our instructional staff about the things that are working and the areas that need additional attention and support, so that we can just really maximize instructional leadership and leverage what we do have to get the resources in the right places. Whereas in a prior system, we're just kind of floating as we're just attending meeting after meeting and just kind of having some awareness of what's happening, but not actually living and breathing it each day. So I'm really excited to share regular updates about what we're learning through our coaching days and the impact that we see that happening, in our classrooms. This morning, I actually started my day with a webinar with the Breakthrough Coach, Jean Sellers, which is the secretary that I work most closely with. And I are continuing our Breakthrough Coach journey. We had a webinar this morning where we're really pushing your thinking. And so we are just so committed to this model of instructional leadership. One of the areas that teachers really started the year focusing on with regard to standard-based feedback are habits of learning for our students. So that would include collaboration, independence, organization, engagement, community mindedness, and work completion. It's really interesting. In the 7th grade classroom that I was in today, I asked all students to identify which habit of learning they felt most confident in and which habit of learning they felt like they needed the most work on. And I would say about 75% of the 7th graders I talked to today gave the exact same answer, which I thought was fascinating. Our 7th graders are feeling like they are very independent. Shocking. And 75% of them said my strength is independence, my talent is organization. And I thought that was really interesting. And as I was reflecting about those habits of learning, there's never this pinnacle of perfection. There are areas in each one of those 6 areas that I'm also working. So I thought it was really fascinating at this point in age 12 and 13, our 7th graders have this idea of being very strong with their independence and needing support with the organization. That's great feedback to give the teachers around providing them structures of organization. The first year they have 7 teachers, 7 classrooms. It would make sense. We need help with organization. So teachers have been using our proficiency scales with habits of learning to give students really clear feedback about what they're noticing, as well as having the students reflect about where they're seeing technical talent. And we're moving into a time where teachers are starting to highlight the first essential standards that they're covering in their classes. They've built some of the foundational routines and some of the foundational prerequisite knowledge to start getting into standards, real standards that students are working on in each subject area. One tool that we use to really learn about academic strengths and area of challenge beyond the student reports and teacher observation would be the math growth assessment. We are administering that right now in English and math classes this week. Wendy has skillfully administered school-wide math growth in partnership with our English and math teachers. And so by the end of next week, we should have this baseline data for how our students are performing in those 2 critical subject areas to be able to give that feedback to the faculty, give that feedback to parents as well, and to students, so that we can really make sure we maximize those instructional days that we have ahead on the very high leverage components of reading and mathematics for our students. We are spending our faculty meeting tomorrow really diving into our multi-tiered system of support process and recalibrating with our faculty and reminding our faculty some of the changes that we had implemented last year to really ensure that we have purposeful conversations about students and really purposeful pairings of intervention and supports so that children can reach their fullest potential. And so tomorrow is kind of the beginning of this year's process of really understanding student needs and having teachers have really a voice and collaborating with each other about the supports to put into classrooms, as well as when additional supports might be necessary for students to provide in those settings. I did want to just circle back to a change that we made this year to enrichments. you may recall that in previous years, we had students self-select their enrichments of interest. And we noticed, especially since the pandemic, that ended up to really break down by gender lines, especially in places like coding that tended to be very male heavy and wood shop. And then on the flip side, we had some of our like more writing focused humanities being very female heavy, and the arts. And so this year we designed a process where all of our 7th and 8th graders would go through a rotation of enrichments, and everybody has access to each class for 6 weeks. And our initial reports from students and teachers alike is that it's working. I was in the wood shop. Mr. Dubois is thrilled by a balanced class and students finding things that they're really enjoying and engaged in the wood shop. I encountered 2 students that made this really incredible triangular shelf. I got to just see it the other day. I'm looking at Maria because one of those students over the daughter. And have you seen it? I haven't seen it. It turned out so
Going back onto your house?
Well, they started with like a hacksaw, and it was kind of a hack job initially. But Mr. Dubois was just showing it to me, and they had sanded edges. It looks really, really nice. And I said, this turned out way better than I thought. He's like, yeah, me too. Kids that may not have self-selected the wood shop are finding things to do in there and finding a lot of joy in that setting. And so it actually, I feel like it's accomplishing what we set out to accomplish, which is you may not know at age 14 what enrichment you would choose for yourself, and we don't want you to choose the one that your friend was choosing for you. Let's expose everybody to all the things and see what they leave really finding an interest in us. So we have a lot more to learn about that, but I'm excited to present that we had some great outcomes to start. And I'll close by just saying we had our first site council meeting as well just this afternoon. And this is a record. We had the most students ever in a site council meeting. I received an email earlier this week from a few students asking if they could come because they heard that some of their friends were coming. And I responded and said, well, we have a finite number of site council members, but these meetings are open to the public, so please come. And so we had a number of students there today, and they were all very engaged and participatory in the discussion. In fact, I need to tell Raquel and some others, we did committee assignments among the parents on the site council and made it super clear our parents participate in these board committees. And as the students raised their hand and said, I'd really like to go to finance committee and learn more about what's happening there. And I'd like to make sure that I'm at the technology committee meeting, you can send me an invite.
Wow.
So we have this student engagement. These are students from the Student Leadership Board and SLAM, as well as apparently some of their closest friends that are getting an interest in kind of how decisions are made at the school and the district level. So it was a pretty awesome meeting today as they jumped right into our system plan and we're giving feedback about different areas and what we learned about homework, what we learned about English language development. And they were really active contributors to the conversation. So I'm excited that that's the direction that we're moving. Student voice, student advocacy around tables that really matter. And you can see some of our systems like Student Leadership Board and SLAM, I think are really like empowering students to contribute in these ways. So we have our first principal coffee on Friday this week. We're doing kind of a Kent 101 as far as some of the things that I've highlighted tonight and more. And so happy if anybody would like to join us, and also happy to answer any questions.
I just have a comment. I loved all of what you said, but especially the opportunity for children to have input on curriculum where they don't see themselves, just with what we're seeing on a national basis of being actively written out of curriculum and history being rewritten. I think it's awesome. Really cool.
Yeah, I would just like to say a quick question. So I thought the breakthrough coach and the enrichment rotations and habits of learning and all that stuff is really great to see evolution of approach in service to students. So thank you for that. It's what we strive to do, and it's great to see it in practice at both campuses with the win time and the assemblies and everything you guys are doing, toolbox and everything. That's just great to see. Question about the MTSS and the changes that you said you made last year. Can you remind us a little bit about how that MTSS process evolved and what you were reminding the staff about?
Absolutely. So you may recall that our very own Wendy Holmes, for a portion of the 21-22 school year, was a 0.8 assistant principal and a 0.2 MTSS coordinator. And I believe the part of that point too was to spend time at both Basic and Kent, right? And look at really refreshing systems. So we have these long-standing systems and processes that we would go through. But I can speak on behalf of Kent to say that the documentation that we've held and the ways in which we were pairing students to intervention needed to be kind of improved and codified in ways that were super transparent and visible to everybody in the system. And so we harnessed kind of what the best of what was working and put a lot of structure around it. And so we have weekly meetings called pre-guidance meetings and guidance meetings. Those meetings are called the same thing, but rather than being simply facilitated by a counselor or a grade level chair, there's a partnership where an administrator and a counselor facilitate those meetings. We have really specific forms in which we're capturing notes. One place where it's all housed, so anybody that was on the conversation can see those notes, really articulating what the next steps are, so that we're really committed to this approach that will not leave any stone unturned as we look at appropriate supports for students, but also not rushing to predetermine what one teacher might think a student might need, advancing too quickly to an area of support that might be too restrictive. That's probably a 10,000 foot view. Would you want to add anything to that, Lindsay?
That it's really, along with being purposeful and intentional, it's just very collaborative. So all of our conversations, we're gathering ideas, we're intentionally having folks share what works with that student in their classroom, what could be something that could be borrowed and utilized in another classroom, and documenting what's working and what's not working, so that we can replicate that, monitor students' progress, and then make decisions around programs and supports for them.
That's great.
So the purpose of having this kind of refreshed description for the faculty tomorrow is that because there's some processes that have the same name from before, kind of this refresh, before we kind of release people to say, okay, have your pre-guidance meeting, we really want to remind, like, this is the flow chart of how it works. Here's how we take notes. Here's who's facilitating. Just kind of that gradual release of responsibility.
That's great. Thank you very much for that update. Appreciate it.
I just have a quick comment, sort of similar to what Silver said. I know I've said this before, but I'm continuously impressed at how much time you guys spend kind of soliciting and valuing students' opinions, from site council to, we're talking about, setting expectations, and, I think it really makes the kids feel invested in those decisions and those expectations. I don't remember any administrators asking me what I thought when I was in middle school. And I just want to say how great I think that is. It's, it really helps these kids feel some autonomy and some power as they are growing up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our facilities needs assessment and maybe setting the stage of what we're doing. And
Yeah, so Damian Lee from Greystone West. Damian, thank you so much for being here today. If you may recall, last spring, we brought forward a contract and the idea of working with Greystone West as a construction management company to come and support us partially through some of our projects that we were implementing, such as the fence that was completed this summer, but also to kind of give us this high level overview of our facilities and the needs that we have. And Damian spoke to us back then about this notion of safe, warm, and dry. That was the kind of foundation that we needed to focus on as we started to forward think about our facilities. So tonight, Damian has a presentation that is attached to our agenda, also that he'll go through that with the board and with our public. And it's a lot of pictures of what he and his partners saw as they went about our campuses, starting in, gosh, I think you even started, was it June you started, or yeah, so June throughout the summer, and completed this analysis. And now this is just the first step. It's just the first step of kind of overviewing what did he see, what would the recommendations be, and then we'll continue to bring information forward to the board to talk about how does this align with costs and such. But right now it's really just kind of setting out what did he see and what might he recommend that we prioritize. So do you want me, how do you want to show the slide deck? I have it on I can do a screencast.
That would be great.
Okay, so let me just do that. Give me 1 second and I'll get that all set up. And. find the- Sorry, I'm trying to. Sorry, I'm trying to get it on the Zoom. It's not. Okay, give me 1 second. I apologize. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break while we get
And
this
get
set
that
up?
Okay.
How about we do that? Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah,
So let's
fine,
just take a 5-minute break.
Sure. This will be in place of our board break, which we
Yeah.
plan for after the consent.
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
Okay, so we were hearing about Damien and the work over the summer and the sort of assessment and we're hearing this presentation tonight.
Yes, so welcome, Damien, and I apologize for that technical difficulty, but I'll just kind of walk us through this as you speak.
So, thank you for having me. As Raquel indicated and introduced, this is a facility needs analysis that's been conducted at both of your sites over the summer. Kind of the second slide here as we go into that clarifies some of the methodologies that we've used and some limitations of this needs analysis. It has been conducted primarily from visual surveys. There are things that we can't know without significantly more research, and there are some recommendations that we will have that do recommend some of that research. But primarily this is a visually oriented survey. The goal is to take a look at all of the things that we spot as construction managers as we walk around your campuses for not only current needs, but for projected needs down the road. We want to look at the conditions of everything that we see, whether there's any safety issues that are currently present, things that may emerge in the future, things that are nearing the end of their useful lifespans, things of that nature that overall contribute to a comprehensive view of the state of your facilities and where they need to head next. So among these, no destructive testing, no laboratory analysis, infrared or camera surveys, no durable good reviews. Typically those are things like plumbing and walls, the state of your wiring, etc. Those are things that we can't know without significantly more research and specialty research. So we're going to be recommending some of those steps be taken just based on the age of the campuses. We'll cover that as we get into some later slides here. As we move into our third slide here, the current status of your campuses are good/fair. They are on the high end of average for Marin County schools. In general, I think they're in pretty good condition. They're coming out of some modernizations, limited that were completed in 2018 and 2019 under Measure D. Those did not necessarily go to a full depth of some of the things that would be a high level modernization, so to speak. It was a basic modernization that refreshed finishes, improved some needs along the lines of windows, carpet, ceiling tiles, lighting, the things that you see and notice in your classrooms every day, but did not necessarily impact things like building framing, the skeletons of the building, so to speak, structural upgrades, accessibility upgrades, other things at a deeper level beyond just a limited modernization. So we also conducted a survey with the former architect that worked at both of your campuses under Measure D. We met with Quattrochi Architects, reviewed some of the things that they implemented and some of their knowledge as well to inform this analysis and things that are concerns as we move forward. A quick note that I'd like to cover here about this presentation. I want to be clear that this is not an audit of your facility staff whatsoever. I've had the privilege of working with Romero in particular now at a couple different districts over the years. He is among the most dedicated and hardworking individuals on the facility side that I've ever run across, and his team is also very good underneath him. In short, a needs analysis is designed to show you some of the ugly, and it's not to indicate that the schools are in poor condition, nor anything that is just completely at issue here. As those issues arise, if we do notice things that are urgent, we're going to label them as such. These are things that can be improved upon with time, and some of the things that ideally can improve your maintenance in the long term as well. Many of the issues that we photographed were actually in the process of already being repaired or corrected at the time that we photographed them. But what you don't want is recurring maintenance issues over and over and over on these same problems. Construction should be designed to fix some of those issues. And that's part of why they've been included here, is to show you that as these things may be recurring problems, we should address them as a systemic solution rather than a temporary one. We try to view things from a construction manager perspective, but also a young student perspective. If we look at it from the perspective of only an adult, we miss a lot. And one of the things in particular that we want to orient our viewpoint towards is how could we get in some trouble? And that's not intended to say any of the students here would, But you know, if you're of a certain age and you're looking to hide in a certain place, there's opportunities for some of those things. So some of the items on this list you'll see are oriented towards that perspective as well, in particular when it comes to safety. If we move on here to the fourth slide, we will start with interior needs over at Basage. We're going to move then to exterior needs at Basage, then to interior needs at Kent, and finally to exterior needs at Kent, and summarizing with some recommendations at the end. A lot of photos here to follow, so we'll kind of work through those as we go. One of the things, as I indicated previously back earlier this year, there are generally 3 imperatives that we consider for operation of school: safe, warm, and dry. If you're not achieving those 3 imperatives, then it's really a major issue that impacts day-to-day function of the school being a school. While safe and warm are generally in good shape at both of these sites, dry is not necessarily in the greatest shape at either of them. You do have significant roof leaks that are occurring at both sites, and that's one of the things that we're going to recommend remediating pretty immediately. I think that's one of the top priorities on this list. The interior over at Basage in particular, as indicated previously, was modernized in under Measure D. Carpet, ceiling tiles, tack wall, other surfaces, windows, and air conditioning are all in pretty new condition. Those have varying lifespans. So while we can project about 20 years for most air conditioning systems, your lifespan on things like carpet and wall coverings generally are far shorter. Your needs are currently being met and will probably for at least the next 5 years. Heating, you've probably got about 20 years ahead of you before that's a problem. But our analysis includes a lot of the lifespans in that capacity to make sure that if it's a funding thing, it's going to have an impact sooner or later, because you'll have to fund a replacement for that particular item. We want to get it on your planning priority as soon as possible. As we move into this slide here, we're showing that air conditioning replacement at least in the next 1 to 5 years. We do have some units that are beginning to age out on that roof. One of the things that you'll see in the photos coming up, actually some leaks that are likely coming from ductwork and not from the roof itself there, although the roof itself is also quite old and requires replacement. Among other things, bathroom improvements for hand dryers should be considered, heavier duty partitions, and potential for gender neutral facilities. Each of these things are considerations among the interior of Basage that I think would serve you well and reduce your maintenance in the long term. So as we move in here to our 6th slide, I'm going to start into photos. That's kind of the entry for Basage to introduce photos. Though it's probably an unfair photo to start with because it's summer and everything is stacked up for cleaning purposes, this is a pretty typical classroom that we're seeing in Basage. You don't see a whole lot of issues present in this particular photograph. You see fairly new lighting systems. The ceiling tiles are all new. Carpet's new. The wall coverings are new. The furniture is new. Just about everything is in good condition at this point for a typical classroom. As we move into our next slide, you'll see on the left, again, this is another classroom that kind of exhibits the same thing. But on the right, you can see where we're starting to get into some of the issues that we did spot. In particular, stained ceiling tiles are indicative of moisture getting into the room. The water that comes from the roof leak tends to carry dirt that then, as it evaporates, stains the ceiling tile. So stained tiles are always the first key for us to look for in terms of whether you've got moisture getting into your spaces. So as we move into our next photo, you can see again some more evidence of additional classrooms here. You'll see even here we're going to have some bricks down the side of the wall. Again, a pretty large leak there on the right. So let's continue here. Now we move into your community center, and I believe that these leaks are actually not occurring from the roof, as I mentioned before. The reason that I say that is they're all centered around your ductwork, and typically that can be a bit of a surprise for folks that as they're looking for things. Always assume that that's a roof leak, but it isn't necessarily the case. Ductwork, as it's on the rooftop and enters the building, can actually have holes in seams, or where those seams have been taped up over the years and we damage has degraded them. Water can get into the ductwork, travel in, and then exit through or register in the room and causes something to appear. So as we move to the next slide. Again, we have additional water damage that we're moving. More stained ceiling tiles. Here you can actually see where some of the drywall has started to erupt a little bit, where the water's got into it. It starts to mold as a result. We move to our next slide here. Again, this is one of the worst areas. This is a pipe penetration for water heater. And what I'm expecting is occurring there is the pipe jack on the roof has failed. You've got water getting down into this, that's sitting over the top of that flashing there and causing the drywall to bulge that has caused that area to fail. Another roof leak here. That's kind of a general theme across most of that campus, with the exception of new construction. The roof in general are in pretty dire shape. Let's move into our next slide. Next up, we're going to get into the grounds over at Basin Shore. And starting off the things that we have seen over there, probably a larger set of needs other than, I mean, your interiors are in good shape with one exception. As we get into the grounds, there are some things that require a bit more attention. In particular, we're seeing some trip hazards. We were seeing some irrigation leaks. Those have since been repaired. Some silt and field fines from the practice field are traveling over into the parking lot during heavy irrigation or rainfall. We've got some striping and just a host of other issues that are, I won't say any is major, but a lot of things that can be lumped together into a category of smaller projects that should really be considered for implementation. So as we move into here, slide. Kind of in general, one of the things that we're seeing is some older equipment. One of the challenges in particular with both of your sites, to back up just a minute, is you don't have a whole lot of the room. There's not a whole lot of opportunity for expanding the sites, or there's not really unused territory, so to speak. So a lot of the things center around efficient use of storage, which could be improved. We're seeing a lot of the older sports equipment and other remnants of extra construction materials and things that could be stored in perhaps a better spot. I just don't know where that better spot would be because there's not many of them. So as we move into our next slide here, this is an area that is a little bit concerning. Behind the modulars, so to orient ourselves here, McAllister would be over here. You've got the creek right in here. And this is an area behind the modular buildings. And these photos show a few different things here. The first is the gutter shop. The reason for that is because it's a heavily shaded area where the trees just continuously drop debris into those gutters. They're probably not even needed because it's not an area that you're frequently going to access, nor would you need to be sheltered from rain in that area. So our recommendation is going to be to remediate that, but possibly to consider just not even putting the gutter back. I don't think it's something that is particularly needed in that area. Next here, you can see a window screen busted out. The other is as you move towards the rear field, there is some equipment that could potentially be gotten to by students. And that's another concern. It's a theme that will show up a few times as I go through some more photos. There's some gaps in the fencing. There's some things like that that could certainly warrant improvement here. So as we move into our next photo, again, just more things that are currently stored back on these modulars. Here. Some more construction items that are leftovers. Another shot of the gutters there. You can see this is an incredibly old transformer with some extra wires. I'm not even sure if it's currently in use, but just one of the things down in that area that could potentially be fenced in or otherwise corrected. So as we move into our next slides. Here is oriented more towards the front of those modular buildings, and you can see you've got some bulging and failing chain link fence that's starting to get pretty old. Could warrant replacement. You'll also see these kind of shade sails that are designed to shade students in that area, but it's not an ideal solution for that. I think something that would be more of a planned solution for that would be better. The concern in particular would be in high winds. If you those the potential for getting hurt is there. So the next one's here, your rear field access, that field has recently been improved, but one of the things that I think could be further improved or considered is the access to get there. And this is currently your main path to get back to that feeling. You can get there through the rest of the campus as well. It's just not a direct route like this one would be, and I think it's consideration to how that might be addressed. You could add some path of travel, so to speak, in there. Up top, you'll see this is a theme that's present at both sites. Some Christie boxes that cover irrigation valves are slightly recessed down into the grass. The concern is that at a full run, if somebody didn't see that, it's a good way to turn an ankle. It's just something that could be better addressed, either by raising the boxes, replacing them. Over here at the bottom, we have some of the bleachers that you can see there's some minor damage on. Things of that nature. It's a lot of low-level concerns that kind of combine into some project we might look at. Let's be heading to our next slide here. This is where the field finds from what I'll call the practice field, the front field closest to the parking lot, are coming off, either as a result of wind or water. But the concern is that they're going into that storm drain as well as out into the parking lot, and they really should be staying put better than they are. There's a lot of science that goes behind that in terms of cohesion levels of aggregate, but that might be one of the things that we take a look at is what sort of fines we can replace what's there with. The other thing you'll note in this picture is some aging bleachers that there's been sort of a makeshift pressure treated riser could need to raise those up a little bit. That may be an improvement worth looking at. We head to our next photo here. This is just a follow-up to the shade sales that I mentioned earlier. This is another concern that's present on both sides. Sort of around the corner, you've got a number of these ornamental iron fences that have been installed. The powder coat has begun to fail at a lot of these, and with marine air like the environment that we have in this area, you're going to see rust start to set in further and further. Powder coating is a chemical process. They electrocharge the material they spray it on, they spray powder over the top, and they bake it. What's really great about it is it's incredibly hardy coating. But this is the major vulnerability. It's that occasionally when the adhesion fails, the whole thing plays off as one piece. So this is something that we're seeing as a premature failure across both of these campuses and a number of areas. We're going to recommend that you consider some sort of a coating project, either an acid wash to strip off the existing powder coat and paint to replace it, or we can consult with some experts to determine if there's a lower spray material that may result in better adhesion here. Another common thread between the campuses is disposal and waste in general. You've got a number of trash cans here, as you can see in the picture, recycle bins, etc. I think there will be better ways to do this. I think the considerations that we should look at either consolidation and a trap enclosure area, whether it's a concrete basin unit enclosure like you can see it more of an industrial space, or a potential trap compactor project at both sites would be well served. Just the concern is potential for vandalism, potential for outside use beyond just the school districts, things of that nature. The other thing that shows up in this photo, as you can see here, is the striping, which we'll cover again in a later slide. This is at your community center on the back side. Romero and his team have since pressure washed and cleaned off this wall. But the concern is that if you're getting enough drainage occurring in these two particular locations to cause this staining, you may have some potential water intrusion in these areas if you're staying wet that frequently. One of the things we'd like to take a look at is the infrared scan of that wall, see if you've got any water coming in. What that will expose is cold spots. So after the storm, within about 4 or 5 days after the storm, you come out in the infrared camera and take a look at it. You'll see everything in orange except for maybe 2 or 3 dark blue zones, and that's concerning because it indicates residual moisture in those spots. So as I indicated earlier, the striping of this site is in pretty poor shape. It's something that we really need to consider. One of the things that we're looking at as well, that I'll touch on a little bit later, are impacted at both campuses by frequent power outages. It's something that we are working on to consider emergency backup generators. We're actually design on that project currently. But we like to be smart how we order things. If you're putting in a new generator at this campus that may require trenching for utility connections, You don't want to put in brand new striping and then tear it up immediately afterwards. So cutting trenches through new striping is not necessarily sensible. There's an order that makes more sense. Ideally, we can address this following the generated project, or at least until we rule out the possibility of that and such striping. As we move forward here, shifting back towards the backside of the campus again, you can see some extra chain link here. In general, the state of the fencing could just really be tightened up. You've got some significant aged fencing at this campus. This is covering the gas meter right now. But just in general across that zone, once you get towards the campus side of McAllister, there's a lot of work that can be done. So another thing here, covering your fields, you've got a lot of lush green field, but you've also got some yellow spots as well, where you've had some irrigation mix taking place over time. That's one of the issues with the fields. The other is occasionally that you'll see areas that are not draining quite so well. And it's always a challenge. Grass fields in general have some benefits, but they also have some maintenance issues that occur with them. A lot of work to keep them up. That's one of the things that we recommend you consider is taking a look at the potential of the third project. If indeed that's something that just be interested in, there are some benefits that are named related to reduce maintenance as an ongoing level. You also get more consistent use, especially after the rains, because the fields don't really get mined out the same way that they do with the grass field. So this is a turf climbing gym over at Basic. Kids love it. It's very well used.
Take it out.
No.
We have so many problems.
So the primary concern here is you can see where the turf's in. Yeah, it's a minor one, but it's something that we should address fairly quickly. You don't want to catch a toe in there. This is over by where McAllister meets Sir Francis Drake, and there's an open hole down there. We're not really sure why it's there. Maybe it isn't that deep thing, but this is one of the number of concerns in that area that we'll start to work through the subsequent photos. You can see here, this at one point was likely a chain link fence that was 6 feet high or higher. It's not anymore. What's happened here is likely it's slid down towards the creek. And you can see the level versus the existing ground just in perspective here. It's lower than it should be. It's overgrown, and in general, that's something that, well, it's not an active safety hazard for students, it's something that they could get into if they wanted to. And we're recommending some on there. I think new chain link and some general cleanup on both sides of McAllister and the creek would be warranted there. Sorry, on both sides of the campus. So as we move into the next one here. This is back to some additional rust issues. Again, this is just present on both sites. It's a concern that as this starts to fail, you may have a risk of a student or a parent or a teacher or anyone cutting themselves potentially operating this gate. Move through. Just another follow-up photo there. This fencing is all relatively new. I think it's just unfortunate that how our coating has failed. In my view, it's premature. I'd like to consult with some folks in the industry to determine if there's a better product out there to overspread this way.
And that's the edge of the background, so I can envision where that is.
So this is the rear parking lot.
Oh, looking from the school out.
And then this is the satellite view of the community now. And to follow up with some of the concerns from earlier, you can see the shingles here, just the different patterning. What you're starting to see with that is wind damage, and the other thing with shingles is that asphalt shingles, as they start to fail, you will eventually see fiberglass peeking through. And that's where all of the aggregates been stripped off the top. They're just starting to fail between the sun, wind, and the rain. It's really a lot to stand it up to more than about 20 years. The other thing in this photo that you'll note, you can see the rust on the mechanical units, and that's just age. We're getting to the point of replacement should really be considered soon. That's going to be a somewhat complicated one. You have to have a crane, potentially even a helicopter to drop those units in place because that is really high up. The other thing you can see here, the other side of the roof, much the same. In general, they're supposed to exceed its useful lifespan and should be considered for replacement quickly. Right, I think that's the last of basic visual needs here. This is another important. Your solar arrays at no campuses are performing. We reached out to the expert that we utilized a number of places in the years. Sage Renewables Energy Consultant. As it turns out, it actually worked here. This news to us. It was fortuitous. They conducted a year 2017. The concerns that they found back then was essentially that the solar systems were drastically underperforming. They were not reaching their capacity for production that they should have. And that can be indicative of maintenance concerns for the system. The other thing is you guys were an early adopter of solar at this district. The challenges with that are many of those early solar companies have been bought solar repeatedly. And sometimes finding the people to do the maintenance when the product is more supported is a challenge by itself. In short, though, where they're at today is even worse. It's unlikely that either of the systems are really producing much at all in the way of renewable energy. We're recommending that you consider a replacement. And there's a number of options for replacement as we move forward. You consider a one-to-one in terms of the production capabilities of the system. But the other thing that's happened in the last 20 years is the efficiency of the modules themselves has drastically gone up. So within the same footprint, if you match the footprint exactly, you're going to be producing a lot more than previously. But we are recommending replacing it with less. What makes the most sense there is pairing that along with report. Just because the scopes interact that much, you do remote at the same time. It isn't all likely to get a pretty painful summer to not follow it out, but it's the best way forward. The next one, as discussed previously, a backup generator project at both campuses is currently in design. It's something that we recognize so often you guys are really happy about power outages and ahead of that. The sooner the better there, but it is an intensive review process with the area of quality national district, as well as the state architect, BSA. We're recommending that a fencing and cleanup project from McAllister be considered. As discussed, that's something that can take place on sort of a perimeter of the group, keeping kids out of it, keeping the pattern activity good. As we move into our next steps here, we do recommend restriping the parking lot and playground. And I've looked at that in the next year. The intent would be immediately on the heels of completing the generator project, or at least as soon as we confirm that we will not be trenching the parking lot. We do expect some utility connections will be needed, in particular Basage. Switchgear and gas will go along this part, so all likely it wouldn't have to those two at this point. Replacement of air conditioning units at the listed NPR here. The community center should be addressed within the next few years. It's tough to predict exactly when those components begin to fill up, but it's even lifespan. Obviously, it becomes urgent. It does go down. That's something that we should begin to plan on. Field improvement should be considered. Turf fields are a potential option, and that they have the additional benefit of reducing maintenance. It gives you a more usable, more frequently usable calendar year as well. There is the potential for just an outside use for rentals and other things like that for use. And then finally, indicated craft compactor with craft can consider something to improve that. That pretty well wraps up the exterior improvements Basage. Starting over at Kent, we're going to jump into interior needs, and it's much the same over here. Largely, your facilities are in good condition, but not bad. The roofs across both campuses are pretty. We'll show a picture a little bit later on the primary purpose of why that's occurred, but it's something that doesn't address very quickly. Ramiro and his team have been replacing ceiling tiles and repairing roofs where they come up. But this is something that is an ongoing and constant maintenance issue when you get wet weather. Field observations included stained ceiling tiles and minor flooring issues at a few spots that we'll cover. Carpet, ceiling tiles, lighting, tack wall paintings, wall surfaces, windows, and air conditioning are all available. There are some areas that were not previously modernized, and those illustrate the age of the campus. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. Some bathroom spaces do require substantial improvements. Next slide here. You do have some aging mini split units, and those are hotel room style units that you'll see in some locations. They're typically a wall cassette or a smaller unit outside. Not all of those were replaced as part of the air conditioning project across this campus. So we noted those in a couple of locations. Another recommendation that we don't have in the capacity is adding cooling to all of the data closets. We don't have it in all locations right now, and that equipment does generate quite a bit of heat. Walking into those spaces, and that's noticeable immediately. It will reduce the lifespan of your switches and other equipment. It's an investment to consider. Office F and Building F does not currently have any ventilation.
Sorry, where is Office F and Building F?
It's a small office space. And this is one of the challenges. DSA makes us use the DSA terminology. And so I think campus terminology tends to be different. It can be alphabetical or by number, and they tend to vary. It's over there.
Right by
There's
the
a small
science
office
classroom.
space.
Okay.
Okay.
There's one small office space that does not currently have any ventilation or cooling. It should really be added to that area. Aging floor finishes are noted in the MPR and science classrooms, as well as a couple of art classrooms, which shows some of the this. The gym vestibule flooring appears to be newer, but it's also showing its age, and some minor issues there. I think those would be considered replacements. Floors and cabinets in the art room are one and two, which we consider replacement. Cabinets in particular, so starting off with the same way, roof leaks are present in just a whole host of areas. So you can see the stained ceiling tiles are indicative of the same issue. This here is a little worse. This is over in the kitchen space, and you can see where you've had some peeling paint as well, like due to high moisture in that area. Some more stained ceiling tiles here. That's one of the worst spots. Is again, typically what this means is you've got water above that paint that's caused it to peel and subsequently burst. You know, maybe even all of those to relieve that. So now we move into some of the flooring issues. This is over in the science classrooms. It's possible this is some staining, but there's also some rough craftsmanship here. This rubber floor base should not be cut up as frequently as it is. You can see where the seams are mismatched and really ugly. It's an aesthetic concern more than anything, but it also indicates the age of the floors. So this is even worse. You can see in the corner where you've got some holes in it. That's just a concern because you're mopping for other things. You get water in spaces where it shouldn't be. Over here, we jump into the NVR space, and you can see where the wall base has even failed completely there. You've also apparently got some peeling wallpaper or wall surfacing in that area. I'm not sure if that's a result of moisture. If there were not other signs that are associated with that, typically you're going to see some swelling in the material, and we didn't note that. But it's something that should be addressed. In general, the floor in that space there's some issues going on in there. This is over at the gym vestibule, and you can see you've got some irregular joints here, which can be indicative of movement, where the floor has settled over time, or other things that differentially settled over time. You can start to get that unusual pattern that emerges. You've got some painting that's probably needed in there, and you can just use a bit of a refresh. This is one of your data frames that is not cooled. You walk into that room and you know it. You've got some minor exhaust venting in there, but it's not enough. It really needs some active cooling. Bathrooms at this campus are a little rough. In particular, this is probably the worst oven, but there's a few that could use some attention here. The first thing that'll note, you can see the door handle has made a hole back there. So the tile itself has been damaged from that. The other, though, that you might notice is some irregularity in where the attachments and the partitions are at. The partitions are probably a little bit lighter duty than they should be, and as kids have utilized them over time, they've started to, for lack of a better term, fall apart. So moving to the next page, we'll show a little bit more. So you can see You've also got just some aging finishes and some aging equipment, fixtures. The urinals are outdated, at the very least. But you've also got a failure that's occurred here at the cleats of the floor, where the partitions anchor down. The hardware is actually rusted out, the things loose. The mirrors replaced a couple of times, so it continues to happen. So really recommending a more long-term solution to that, remodeling that bathroom space. The thing that you can't see in this picture is it also is really underventilated. There's a substantial odor in that bathroom that it could be remediated through ventilation. Here's one of the older mini split units, and just the main reason that we've included this is to note that they are present in the 2 spots. So it would be surprising. Generally, the attitude is we just replaced all of the air conditioning on campus. We did, with a few exceptions. And there are some of these exceptions that are likely to fail sooner than the rest of the equipment that you would expect. Just worth noting in terms of long-term needs. Another one here, much the same. So this is in one of your art classrooms here. And you can see we've got a couple different ages of vinyl composition tile right in that area. You've also got some aging cabinets that could really afford to be replaced back there. Here's another shot of those cabinets. That really exceed the useful lifespan and should be replaced pretty quickly. And we happened to run into the art teacher when we were walking sites over the summer, and she mentioned about it. It was pretty apparent as soon as we walked in the room, but I think they really could use replacement in there. As we move into the grounds here, in general, it's a lot of things that we thought were invasive. It's like 8 different issues, but among them, a site cleanup should take place. There's some bathing sports equipment. You've got a portable classroom, ramps, and other things, some pallets and other materials. Some cleanup should really take place here. The athletic fields are showing signs of minor trip hazards, much the same that basic over there. Perimeter fencing is showing signs of rust. And the batting cage is a little bit beat up. We solved one of those issues this summer. We've had some trees that have fallen over in the past. And as we walked the site, one of the things that stuck out was we had the risk of a couple more trees potentially getting ready to go. The narrow team here invited progress just to take a quick look and before the trees were dying. There were 2 affected Monterey pines, and those were removed to ensure the safety of that engagement. We saw it. The campus has been partially modernized in 2 different cases. And one of the things that gives that away is we've got many different the problem with that is rocky grounds. There are a number of trip hazards that those settle in different ways over time. And while it's not an urgent need necessarily, writing down trip hazards would be one solution for it. I think a comprehensive approach would make sense because it's been piecemealed so many times that just doing it the right way might be good. You lock everything together and it all moves at the same rate. And you no longer have these issues over time, but you really lose it for 2 years. You've got some nesting birds at this campus. And weird that we didn't notice them over at basic so much. But there were some efforts made with some netting to discourage that, and they just nested rather than netting. It's a concern, not necessarily for safety, but it's not fun. So for student benefit, that's one to take a look at. While during nesting season, birds are present, they're not able to disturb them by law. However, when they are no longer present, you are able to put measures in that would discourage them from re-nesting in the following season. Your athletic fields in particular, this site, there are a lot of spots that continue to be and that's a concern. I think if you're tracking mud or running the risk of slipping, and in short, they should be usable. Obviously, for us, they would otherwise be. It's one of the things that we recommend taking a look at. As indicated, the crafting corridor package policy considered at this site. We've got a couple of dumpsters, being craft cans themselves, and the other campus, but still in work. Asphalt paving and striping at the campus nearing the end of its useful life, and that's in a couple of different spots. We're recommending replacement of that in the next 1 to 3 years. And then you've got a number of wood benches, particular back of the gymnasium over here, that are starting to age out. It's a splinter risk, it's a risk of, you know, a lot of kids, the wood's just getting old, it should be replaced. You know, coated steel benches are utilized elsewhere on the campus. So here you can see some of the excess material that's the formula that was referenced. You've got some of the main back there. See the asphalt as well. This is back on the grounds. This portable was aging out. I don't believe it's currently used as a classroom space, but that's something to be looked at as well. So jumping into the same fence issues with us over here, this is perhaps a little bit worse in some locations in other places. This illustrates is just one picture that kind of shows the different ages of the concrete. And in this picture, you can see a lighter color concrete with different aggregate than what's in the middle than what's at the classrooms themselves. And over time, the more of that has been done continues to be done with feasible work here and there. You're going to get trip hazards where one sits slightly higher than the other, and you're walking through, you catch your toe and fall down. So that's something that we want to take a look at. This is the batting cage. The aforementioned tree image. You can see here that's not supposed to be her. Is worth taking a look at as we move forward. Is just to make sure that we stay in shape in that area. This is the asphalt. This is what they call alligator. And what tends to happen is either moisture gets underneath the asphalt, it moves. And as this starts to crack this way, you continue to get more and more moisture, which has the rest of the top of it, and it just advances the layer of material. You don't have a whole lot of time before this is going to require replacement. What we're recommending is an overlay rather than a full replacement, because right now this is not so far on that that's an impossibility. If it does go beyond another couple of years, I think it shifts from an overlay over the top of the medium-sized section into a full tear out and replace, which is a lot more work, a lot more money.
How long does an overlay last?
Depends on the use, depends on the moisture, but you know, safely you can get it.
Okay.
Here you can see you've got a couple of dumpsters again, and trash cans. So we get the next good by here. More asphalt issues here. I can this over these as we jump to the next photo. We'll back up with the dumpsters in a minute. Here we've got some roughing handrails. Generally, what that's indicative of is just water getting into where those handrails are down in the concrete. Got some weeping wrestlers that are in there. You've got kind of an abrupt transition on this particular way down here. As you work your way down, it's not the best transition for accessibility in that. Here is one of the larger safety hazards in the preview nest. You've got some older pull-up bars that are out in that area, but you've got some pipe stubs that are right down there in the ground. And if somebody were to fall, that's a significant hazard. That's something that should be removed. You can see you've got an older portable classroom ramp. You've got some additional sports equipment there. This is the bird issues that present on this campus. And you can see here on the music in particular, the equipment to try and reduce that by design, but the corporate birds got it. So it's something that a better solution might be well advised. This is another one of the things that's a little bit bizarre. This is electrical switchgear that's sort of in the middle of the campus. And it's a symptom of tiered building over the years where this occurred. It just didn't make sense to move it at a high cost. And then, you know, if you're looking at budget and how you get your new classroom building, if this doesn't have to be addressed, you leave it in place, which is why some of these things are present the way that they are. But it also illustrates kind of the point that I was leading to with the concrete. We've got some trip hazards in there, just, it could be done better. And there are some things that should be addressed in that capacity. Here's some more rust. You can look at the back towards the path on the side here. This is the dumpster picture that I wanted to talk about earlier. What I'm guessing happened here is it was originally bolted in a different spot to be secured, and somebody either hit it or kicked it, but it busted out the siding in that particular area. It's just indicative that a better solution could be in place for that. Another spot to put those things, trash enclosure, or potentially a compactor that just would reduce that being a problem. It's also located right on the back end, and I think that would be a better spot for those. This is in the shadow of your gymnasium. The gym also has a roof that is getting light here. What this is granules coming off your asphalt shingles in that area that is built up in that particular area of this, which it's a sign that we're starting to get old. With wind and damage, it carries those things down. You can see here as well. This is the source of your problems in terms of roof. This particular detail is a little rough and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the designers that have looked at it. You have a threaded rod connection that goes through your roof membrane in this particular area and actually anchors to your solar structure across these campuses. And it's a weak point, and that's actually is what has carried the moisture from the roofs themselves down into the classroom spaces and staying in your ceiling tile. It's the point of failure. So one of the considerations of replacements is switching to standing seam metal roofing. It holds up a lot better over time, reduces the need for maintenance, and we would also not do that again. So, here you can see the condition of the roofs, just visually from front. You've got some roofing that has reached the end of its lifespan. These are pushing a little bit more than 20 years in a couple spots. But the fact that you can see the lapse in the material themselves, the different classes of the roofing, you can see where an exhaust fan has been covered over with a trash bag there because it's leaking as well. Ramiro and his team are doing an admirable job, but it's a losing battle. The roofs themselves are just fair. It's something that needs to be replaced. Another trip hazard here. Even the asphalt on the backside of the campus, while it's probably not actively used, it's certainly not subject to vehicle traffic the same way. It's also getting, so to the extent that this is getting reused in programs or is something that's part of the use, that's something that should be looked at as well. You can see there's trip hazards present in this, and this also shows the drainage issues at the field. You can see along the center line of the field there just how much mud is present. This photo was taken either late in early July, as well as the rainfall. It's something that should be addressed with your fields. Over here, another photo that illustrates all the different ages of concrete and some trip hazards as well. You've got a trip hazard present right at the bottom of those stairs. You've also got some original concrete hardscape that was done with those stairs that's since been topped over. That topping has failed. You can see it on this side, but it's actually present on the other as well. It was done too thin, and over the time, it's just starting to peel back off. Here, you can see the planter around your tree illustrates kind of how much movement you're getting. And that's the challenge. It's tough to put in perspective just how up and down some of these areas are, but it's the simple of doing this over multiple pieces rather than all on the go. The right way to do it is to tear it out, pack it really tight, treat the soil how it needs to be treated, and put one piece back over the top of it so that it's all locked together in each. Not an urgent concern, but it's something that we would recommend considering. Here are the wood benches. Just an age, they really should be replaced. The play surfacing at the playground is of a couple of different generations of age, and you can see you've also got some failure starting to occur here. Essentially, what this is rubber granules that are bound together with the system. And it works very well and it's really soft at the beginning. You can put in an overlay to put it in, but it gets a little bit stiff. And we've had mixed results with that. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it's so stiff that it's so we would recommend consideration of a solution now, whether that's outright at price move or an attempt at just recoding the top, knowing that that's a risk, and it doesn't help. How willing the site is to accept stiffer price service, that would be a concern. So again, covering the additional needs here, much like over phasage, the solar system is beyond its useful lifespan. It's something that's going to be replaced. You're not getting much out of it right now. About the only purpose it's getting is to cause use. Campus is impacted by frequent power outages. The backup and previous project currently in initial stage of design as well. Board in place are the same we just touched on. One of the other things that's come up for this summer is elevated iron levels. This is a water issue. Iron is considered a secondary stream in water. It's not something that is actively unsafe. It's something that is massive quantities that would be a problem. But it is an aesthetic concern. And the biggest aesthetic concern is it changes the color of the water to a yellow brownish color, and we have to dedicate this areas or some improper taste out of the water. So we've been working through some sampling that's been done just through the solar summer, as well as recently this last week. And the goal is to determine where the impacted areas are. Where we started was just testing levels themselves as soon as we were there for the issue. Second step is determine whether it's coming from the campus because elevated levels or not. To check both sides of the water surface. And it's clear that it's inside the campus is where the issue's at. One of the things that's occurred in the last few years is a lot of municipal water services have switched to chlorine rather than chlorine. Chlorine is a combination of chlorine and ammonia. And it's a better product in terms of treatment that can have implications of corrosive effect on over and pipe systems, which is what I would guess we're seeing here. I would imagine you have ductile iron pipes at this campus, and that treatment has potentially led to some of the higher iron levels that we're seeing come out in water for us. It's not an active hazard, again, it's something that everyone knows assumption that would be a problem, but it is a concern. It's something that you don't want to drink necessarily when you see it. It's just not appealing. So we are looking at a solution for that as well. The first step is to determine the extent of the problem, the impacted areas, and then get how we solve it. Suggested priorities. This is a big one. This is how we start to get our path out of the woods and moving forward. We want to prioritize the work that's needed at these campuses and kind of get a full list to make sure that we're addressing all of the things that we've covered here, but also beyond it. The most significant emergency in both campuses in large scale was replacements. This request expressed the preference for standing that working with indicated earlier. The photovoltaic system is shot at both campuses, which should really be replaced. Frequent power outages are in place at both sites. We're working through a generator project right now. There's a number of minor projects that we combine both in terms of safety and in terms of advanced maintenance, so to speak, minor floor replacements, mini splits, and things like that. Miscellaneous small needs should be grouped into planned projects and addressed. And things on that list are fencing, split grids, floor in place plate grids, and cabinets and flooring. So this is another one that we should start thinking about. The facilities in general, the facilities in most of California were built to serve the baby boom demographic. It means that they were built anywhere from 1950 to 1970, but they're now between 50 and 70 years old as a result. They won't last forever. And one of the things the state has begun encouraging in a pretty draconian way is limiting modernization moving forward. We're trying to encourage schools to no longer invest in aging facilities and instead invest in their replacements. The problem is cost. With a significant delta between modernization and new construction, and the way that the state has implemented the interpretation of regulations is a challenge as well. Currently, we see modernization costs of $750 a square foot. New construction is about $1,200 a square foot. That is what I would call typical classroom costs for most of the buildings in the area. The state has put a cap of $260 on investment in facilities. And if you exceed that cap, $260 per square foot in those facilities, they require you to modernize them entirely from code. That means everything. It means energy code, it means structural code, it means accessibility. And the problem is that it's more critically cheaper to replace those buildings than to modernize them all the way to code. So it's something that is not necessarily an issue here in the immediate future, but you do have a bit of a ticking clock. Facilities will only go so far and so long. It's something that, as you approach the need for a more significant modernization 10 to 15 years from now, is likely to be a problem to consider. And the question is whether we start to get ahead of that problem now, by planning for some potential replacement classroom facilities. That's something better left to address down the road. It's just the reason that I've included it here is, again, there's only so much further that these buildings will go before there's no longer an ability to modernize. For recommendations, I think we should evaluate the general. We have a lot of needs here that add up. The roofing in particular is not cheap, so it's not cheap. There is a substantial sum that matches the needs of these campuses. While your current needs are substantial, it achieves the imperative of safe, warm, and dry, but it doesn't get you further than that. If there is a goal to get further than that, to consider program expansion and replacement facilities, it's something that would make sense to take a look at now as well as part of the long planning process. Finally, our last recommendation on the list here is an annual contribution to the deferred maintenance budget, where even if you don't touch it in one particular calendar year, it eventually is going to need to do that work. Things like paint, exterior paint, this campus, typically we assume 5 to 7 years of lifespan beyond that. But the repaint campus of this size will be over $1 million, which is a significant hit to the budget if you don't plan on it. So deferred maintenance fund potentially in the budget, even if it rolls over for a number of years, and then cover that need when it arises. This essentially relates to planning for the funding. With that, that is pretty much what we saw as we go through the campaign over the summer.
I had a couple of questions if I could, please. The ornamental iron fences that you observed rusting and losing the powder coating, any estimate of how long they've been there? I think they've been there 15 years, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a range of ages.
Okay.
I think you've got some that are probably in that range, about 15 years old, some that are 10, and some out here that's significantly newer.
Right.
The stuff up front was done just in modernization, and we've obviously added the piece out over summer.
Right.
So I think you've got a range depending on exactly where you're at on campuses.
Okay. It just feels to me like some of that stuff should be still within its usable life.
I would agree. I think the challenge with powder coating in particular is adhesion. It's getting material to stick over the top of it. So I think we want to consult with some experts in terms of painting in particular to find something. You want to kill the rust first, and then recoat over the top and make sure that it sticks, and really that it sticks longer than another. But that's the challenge.
Just a quick question to the site administration. Did you guys have a chance to be part of these walk-arounds and walk-throughs the campuses to prioritize and see these projects and needs?
Not necessarily with Daniel, but certainly had, I felt like I was in the loop.
Okay.
Communications with Raquel, and we did some of our own walkthroughs from your home.
Great.
A number of occasions. So.
Thank you for your observations of what a good job Ramiro and his team are doing. So thank you for that, staying on top of all this stuff. I know it's a constant effort. It's a lot. Quick question, and I don't know if this might be something to think about longer term, is whether there are external entities that play any role or have any responsibility or have any connection to the gym, the community center, and Grant Grover here on this campus. This feels like at least there's some other touch points in the community that you might have an interest in that upgrade.
So like those that access our facilities, so high end. So we do have, so our gym here is rented out quite a bit to sports organizations, specifically I would say CYO and NBVA, which is another basketball organization. The community center Ross Rec utilizes. And those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. In terms of Grant Grover, you know, there's a pretty clear delineation between the two, and their usage, and they're not coming over to the campus. I think there had been a request in the past about trying to share the garden space a little bit. But you know, but I don't believe they're coming over our campus.
The extended East and West is also their construction.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. Historically, I think that the local CYO community more broadly defined played a role in the funding and planning of that gym originally. So I don't know if there's other opportunities to be creative about that kind of thing.
I will say the only other organization that has leaned into, so CYO has been big about the gym floors, and I think we were in a meeting last year, but for our fields, I've heard from Ross Valley Little League as well as from Kentfield FC about our fields and interest in looking at how those can get upgraded. Prior to my joining the Kentfield School District, I do believe that the PE team from Kent had expressed some interest around the Kent fields. And I have not heard directly from Kentfield, from the I think it's the Grizzly lacrosse, and or the softball, Kentfield softball, about any requests other than the trees and some of those pieces. But I don't know if you've heard anything recently from your team.
Not recently, but I've been from the interest from the about what, I mean, highlighted some benefits of the turf, but yeah, we get that as well.
The other question on is reducing water use.
I know we just got the baseball fields done at Basich recently, gift from Ross Valley Little League. One of the things you mentioned was like the sediment, the infield dirt. What isn't I don't exactly know what term you used, but it's not right for at least the conditions here that if the wind is pushing it off. Is that something that we can, I'm assuming we're under warranty there and we can we can like work with them to help fix that, or is that?
So I think the rear field has been done, but I get the sense that the front field adjacent to the parking lot was not impacted as heavily.
Yeah, their project was very focused on that corner of McAllister and Francis Drake, and that large, that majors field that's there.
Yeah.
The dugout and all that stuff there. And where you were seeing that fines, I think was the term you used, blowing off was on the practice field, which is over by the community center.
Right.
By the park.
Okay.
But.
Okay.
Yeah.
It goes, the water brings it.
Okay.
And everything.
One question that I got answered for the first time in many years of seeing this stuff was, there is not solar currently on top of the community center or the NP room. Oh, sorry, the gym.
Yeah.
So those are large flat roofs that could support a lot of solar.
Engaging Sage in particular has been one of the best ones that we've run across in that field. One of their founders is the inventor of the solar lines, how to map out sun patterns and optimize solar systems. Really good experts in the field. The fact that they've done previous analysis of the district, I think even both well as well, because they're already up to speed with what's going on here. So it's one of the recommendations. Potential recommendations for design for the forward.
And that was 2017 that they did that other review. Interesting. Anything else from the?
Thank you for a really thorough review and presentation. It was really helpful to see all the images too.
Yeah, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next steps, just to like put that out there. So your question to our site team. So we did in January walkabouts with our site teams just to say, okay, and that was prior to Damien joining us, just to kind of, what are some of the things you're seeing? And at that time, you know, the floors in the MP rooms at Kent, for example, the concerns around McAllister started to come up, some basic. So just as, you know, some high level. And then we brought Damien on board and he did his analysis, and he had provided myself, Ramiro, and Michael a like preliminary list. And when I looked at that list and looked at what we had discovered with the site administrators, it was pretty similar. So we anticipated that none of this would be super surprising. There was one thing that Maria actually said to me, wait, well, what about McAllister? And I was like, oh no, leave out McAllister, it's just the wording, right?
Yeah.
So, and so clearly we saw that on there today. So we do want to have more engagement with our principals about kind of like, what does this look like and where would we prioritize? And then the next piece is really looking at what are the projected costs associated with all of this? And so today we really just wanted to give you the information. What was that analysis? What did it provide for us? You could have and think about it and take it all in, and all of us, our team could do that as well. And then kind of, okay, so now what? How do we prioritize? And then go back to some of the things that had been talked about. So the bathrooms at Kent was something when I first came on board was talked about. And I think it was the expense. We didn't have enough money within the bond at that time. And we wanted to prioritize the AC. So anyway, so there's just all the things are kind of coming together, which we're in a good spot. So what I foresee next is having Damien join either a board workshop to kind of walk through some of those more specific. I also think there would be some updates with the finance committee about this so that they're looped into what's happening and where we're at, because we began facility conversations last year with them as well. So anyway, so that's just kind of some next steps that you can anticipate from staff and from our partnership with Grace West.
You're right, the timing is very good, so super simple. The other thing I would remind us all is that we engage the staff in prioritizing what they saw as top priorities last time around, and that what brought HVAC to the top, that and financial realities, but we'll make sure to do that again.
Yeah.
And I see finance committee in October.
We'll be here before we know it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Super useful.
Thank you, Damien. Really appreciate all your work.
Okay, moving on to consent items. Are we doing these one at a time, or are we?
One fell swoop.
One fell swoop. On the consent items, looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
McDonald, and looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin.
Say that.
Any discussion?
So I just want to highlight two things. So just to remind folks what this is, there are a variety of things in here. I'm looking at item, the warrants, which is item K3A. And so this is just a summary of the bills that were paid during the course of the last time we were together. And then it itemizes out the different budget codes that were utilized. So a couple questions came up from board members. One was about the charge to Woodlands. And so just the reminder that we used to receive our milk and fruit for the breakfast program at times, not always, from Woodlands. And so that was the final bill from them. We also have a contract with the California School Boards Association to support our the board policies online that we need to maintain through Gamut, as well as where we post our agendas. And then this board has access to professional development on there. So that's what that contract is. It's an annual contract. And so other than that, it was just kind of some of the things that we were doing to close out. So.
Any other questions on consent items? Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The consent items, section K, are adopted as presented. We are moving on to a part of the meeting where I'm not sure if all of our site staff.
Well, no, it's getting late. We have our action agendas, we have the board policies, and we have a presentation on the unaudited actuals.
Right. And those instructional materials.
That we have.
Okay.
So do you wanna?
I would make that offer. If
You guys have a big day tomorrow, so you can choose. Look at them all. I don't know. It's Wednesday.
She's getting it out, you guys. That's out.
Got your staff meetings.
I'm like, take me out.
That's right. So Mr. D will stay with us for certain, but folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Damien, you're more than welcome to stay if you want for the notice of completion. Damien. Okay, yeah,
Oh, is that the
the notes and.
kind of change thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, have a
Okay.
wonderful evening, guys.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Super
Thank
great
you.
presentations on everything. Much appreciated. So we're having a item M here, a public hearing on instructional materials. Item M1, a public hearing regarding the sufficiency of instructional materials. Reminding me of the process. I'm opening it, soliciting comment, discussion, comment, and then closing it. Okay, I am opening the public hearing on instructional materials as of what is that, 7:38? Looking for any discussion on this item.
No discussion. We have all the required instructional materials for our students.
Annual requirement to address this question. Any public comment on this? Any discussion from the board? Okay, I will, staff recommends approval of resolution number 3 regarding sufficiency or insufficiency of instructional materials for 22-23. Looking for a motion.
If you close the hearing and then there's an action item.
Got it.
Approve the instructional material.
Got it. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing on instructional materials at 7:40. And I will address in O1A, consider the approval of resolution number 3, sufficiency of instructional materials. Thank you for your patience with me. Looking for a motion.
All right, so moved.
Trustee Irwin, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 3, sufficiency of instructional materials is accepted as presented. Item B, action, consider the approval of consolidated application CARS 1 funding for federal categorical programs for 23-24. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald, any discussion?
No, this is federal funding that we receive. This is an annual report, and we're confirming that we will be utilizing the funds in the way in which they're intended. And this is the amounts that's been preliminarily allocated to us.
Any questions from the board? Any points of discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The application for federal funding via the CARD grant is approved as presented. Item C, consider approval of resolution number 4, adopting the GAN limit, favorite annual approach. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee McDonald, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin, any discussion?
Each meeting.
Any questions from the board?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 4, adopting the GAN limit, is adopted as presented. Item D, consider the approval of the unaudited actuals for the 22-23 school year. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee McDonald, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin, discussion.
So we do have a presentation.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask Michael to come up and I'll get it up on the screen.
Yep.
Okay, so Michael's going to give us a brief overview of our unaudited actuals.
This is going to be very brief. We will talk about what's already on balance and our expenses and also summary of our other funds. So the unaudited actual is the year-end financial document that's required for the ECHO. We do this every year. And it demonstrates all our receipts and also our expenses. We also have some other supplemental documents that goes with the audited documents. So we prepare this on a form called SARS. So that account report structure. This is also one prepared by the state. And we have to present it to the board on or before September 15th. Once the board approved it, it goes to the county office and also our external auditors. So fund balance is an accumulation of revenue minus expenditure. Pretty straightforward, and it measures the total health of the school district. And also it shows the reserve requirement in current and subsequent. So fund balance. To get it into the details, we started with $2.5 million fund balance. This is as of July 1st, 2022. We started with 2.5 million on 22-23. We brought $22.5 million and we spent $21.3 million. So we jumped from 2.5 to $3.7 million when we closed the books. That's a good news. So the allocation of this $3.7 million is not necessarily all restricted fund. Our unrestricted fund have $2.7 million, and the restricted fund bond. Restricted fund is completely restricted. Means we receive the money that we haven't spent yet. We will spend it next year or a year out. And the $2.78 million is unrestricted with the state's money. So just to go a little further, the 1.2 million that is the increase for fund balance, 634,000 on the restricted side, and 567,000 is for balance. So the 567,000 looks it's high. And out of the 567, we have about $200,000 for key money that we have spent in last year. So we received the money that we haven't spent, $400,000 in 2023. We spent it, some of it was spent in 2023. So not necessarily that we have the 567 per se, it's 567 minus the 4, which is our unrestricted fund. And this is about, for the unrestricted, it's about 13% reserve. It's very healthy. And if we take that $200,000 away, that's about 4%. So that's a very good healthy fund balance. For the restricted programs, mainly it's the art and music and also the learning recovery fund that we received in 2022-23 and not fully spent yet. The next slide, please. So this is summary of our revenue. Most of our money, 55% plus another 22%, that's about 75%. We started with local property tax and personal cost tax. If we add it to that, about 81% of our revenue is coming from this local property tax. The state money is $1.7 million. And of this $1.7 million, about $1 million is one time. So the current year for 2024, we're not going to see 1.7, it will be significant. We have some money that we have to spend see it there, the revenues. On the federal side, close to $500,000, $200,000 is a one time. So coming to this year, we'll see a big change for the state. Next slide is our expenses. As you see, most of our expenses, salary and benefits. Salary and benefits is about 75%, 77%. And if we add expense on behalf of that, about 81% is our salary and benefits. Service and contract, 2.7 million, that's the big one, the rest is for this one. Slide. So these are the fund balances for the other funds, other than fund. The fund 14, the third maintenance, we always talking about it. David was talking about money. We have this major maintenance that we just cannot afford it to take it from fund nowhere. It's really important that we save money going forward. Long time ago, the state required that we put money for maintenance, but they don't do that anymore. But I think that's something that we need to consider. It's very important. So the building fund, the board, we have a little balance in the developer's fee, and 78. School facility fund 35, we have almost $5 billion. We did receive in 2023. $1.6 million we're going to for the kids. Okay, and our special reserve for capital outlay. The highlight is our fund balance is in good shape, 2.7 million. If we are funding, we will be advancing to 3, and the PPA continues support, which we provide. So we just forwarded, we just gave you a revised under 1 expenditure report. So what I want you to see on that is if you flip it on page 2, and we go to competitive fund balance. Well, under assignment, where it says under assignment, we put a 3%. District designated reserve. So out of the $2.7 million, we are reserving 3%. For any district designated needs. In addition to that, we're doing the special ed reserve for another year. So we said we have $567,000, and out of that $200,000. So that's like $367,000. If we're going to use this $300,000 for special ed, we pretty much like net into zero. Whatever increase we get, it's pretty much that. So just for you to know that. All right. The next slide. Right, we'll come in December. We will update our first reports. We have the budget. We're going to put all carry over that we have from 2023, and also the updates that we have. And we'll talk about that in December. This is just a calendar going forward. The audit must be done by January 2024. Actually, I'm here today. So it's not about our goals. The audit will be done pretty soon before January. And we'll come back with the governor's budget on January 4, and of course the budget will be developed in spring, second midterm, and the adoption will be on March 24. I think that's it, and if you have any questions.
I have a question, and it might not be a financially smart question, but in county treasury, do we earn any interest for the funds that are sitting there? And is it competitive given that now, like with banks and stuff, there's at least 5% or so in savings in general?
not 5%, but it is very. Yeah, because the carry for ever that. It's very good.
Okay.
Not because of 5%.
Okay.
I had a question about the deferred maintenance fund 14. As we build that up in the coming years, what is the impact of that on reserves? Does that count into reserves or is it set aside entirely separately?
It's set aside, then we can put it back if we want.
Okay.
So the third day, put it aside, and we can put it back.
And quick question on that, if I could, before when California encourages districts to have a deferred maintenance fund, do you remember the structure or the percentage or what they recommended at the time?
I don't have the details, but I can find it because, it was something percentage. And that stops when we went to NCAA.
Right.
So it's pretty broad and we can go back and see.
I'm curious, yeah, maybe for the next finance meeting.
And it's up to the board to.
Right.
Whatever they want.
Right. I had one other question. You said that you highlighted in the other state money that there was quite a lot of one-time funding that was embedded in that 1.7 or something that we had on that revenue line, and that there was going to be there'll be a big change next year, because of course that wouldn't be there. You also indicated there'd be a significant change on the federal, but I wasn't sure I caught the reason why. Was there one-time federal money in that 400,000?
Was 500,000 yeah.
Right.
200,000.
Of that 489, something like 200,000. Thank you for that context.
I mean, we spend the money on one-time expenditure.
Sure.
It's not like.
Understood. Any other questions from trustees?
This was very helpful. So thank you, Michael. I did have one quick follow-up question to what David just asked about the one-time money that will go away. So are you then forward planning because we will lose this money, right? So we are forward planning to make sure that we'll be okay. Okay.
That's why we do one-time money. Spend it on one time.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Great, thank you.
Can I highlight two quick things?
Please.
First and foremost, Michael, thank you so much for putting that together. Very clear, concise, gave all the
great.
highlights that we needed. So the deferred maintenance fund, so if you note, it's a separate fund, so it pulls out of our general fund, we put it aside, and then it's not in the reserve. If we want to increase our reserve, we could always take that and put it back in. So I think that because it shifts from a fund 1 to a fund 14, whatever. The piece around where we increased in our fund balance. So Michael talked a little bit about some funding from KIC. So what happened is, if you recall, the auction is in the springtime.
Right.
They raised their money from the fund to need, and they actually wrote us a check in the springtime for the fund to need to fund fiscal year 23-24. So we captured that revenue at that time. So then it got captured in fiscal year 22-23. And then we've spent it over the summer for fiscal year 23-24. So that was what that is.
Yeah.
The other part of the 200,000, so I think it was 148,000 that KIC had raised. The residual, the rest of that is, if you recall, they had an overage.
Right.
So we are still confirming exactly what amount of that overage is still available that hasn't been fully spent down yet. And we're in communication. We met with KIC maybe a week or two ago, so they know that. So just so you have, that's what that information is. And then the piece around the restricted funds, we intentionally held out on spending that money. So Annie, I appreciate you bringing up these one-time dollars. And Michael and I actually just met with the site principals to talk a little bit about the various restricted dollars and really trying to hold out the money as long as we can so that we can scaffold the supports that we want to provide for our students and for our staff, and not have to pull things and get as creative as possible. So if you recall, the board had approved spending up to 25% of the learning recovery money.
That's right.
And we didn't come anywhere near that last year, which is good. And then we didn't touch the art and music Prop 28 money at all. we just left it because we had received advisement, go ahead and capture it, but don't budget it because there's still information from the state trying to figure out exactly how those funds
Right,
should be utilized in the plans that you'll need to submit. So anyways, just so you have that reminder and so our public has it.
Yeah.
One more quick question, the OSCP something
Oh,
money,
the OPS
OPSC?
money.
does that appear in Fund 35?
That's at 1.6.
1.6 out of the 2.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
We're-
Thank you. It's great.
And we are taking action on that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, we have taken a motion and a second, correct?
And that was.
Any further discussion or questions?
No.
Okay, I approve, looking for a vote to approve on the approval of the unaudited actuals for 22-23 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The unaudited actuals for 22-23 are approved as presented. Moving on to facilities, item 2A, consider the approval of change order number 1 regarding Kent Middle School new fencing project foundry construction. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Discussion.
So your contract documents, issued by your legal counsel, include a 10% construction contingency for change orders. That's for unforeseen conditions, that's for changes that are required during the course of construction to correct a problem, etc. Please report in this case that we did not utilize any of those funds. The project went along exactly as expected. And we returning.
Fantastic
Yay.
news.
So this is this 13,400
Yeah,
that
yeah,
flows back into
The
the
funding.
appropriate
nice.
Great.
account. Now, how does that relate to item B?
Let's take a vote on that
Okay.
and then we'll go.
All right.
Okay.
Looking for a vote on considering the approval of change order number 1 regarding Kent Middle School new fencing project boundary construction. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Change order number 1 is approved as presented. Moving on to item 2B, consider the approval of notice of completion for the AE Kent Middle School new fencing project. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin, looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Discussion.
I do have a question.
Oh, yes.
Based on what we saw in the last presentation, do we have any like warranties on these fences when they go in?
Probably, well, in terms of current installations, yes, typically you have either a 1 or a 2-year warranty specified in the contract. documents. Most typically it's a 1-year warranty for defects in workmanship and 2 years on materials.
Okay.
But for in terms of the rusting and well beyond that.
Yeah.
it has to go locations.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering about the new one that just went in. The 2 years sounds awfully short to me,
But, yeah. So discussion of this item B, the notice of completion.
So what a notice of completion does is signal to any vendors that are under the contractor that the job is complete, and if they have not yet been paid, that they must file a stop notice within a shortened time period. And typically, if you receive a stop notice from a supplier or a second-tier subcontractor, it can be indicative that they have not been paid by the general contractor, which is then problematic for the district.
Right.
And the notice of completion does not ever necessarily mean that a project is complete, although it is the proper time to file that. It, in essence, only shortens the validity window from 90 days down to 35. It's a protective measure for the district that we always recommend. At the conclusion of a project, we file that at the county office, and that sends a signal for anyone that's involved in the project that they have that short window to file their documents.
Right.
Very wise.
Yeah.
Any discussion, any questions? Looking for a vote to approve the notice of completion for the Kent fencing contract. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The notice of completion for the fencing project is approved as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you for that context too, super helpful.
Yeah. I think just those 2 items, I just want to call out. there are so many nuances with
Mhm.
facilities and instruction, especially when it's something that has to go through the DSA approval. Having Damien's expertise and ability to walk us through that is super, super helpful. So I'm appreciative of the board's support of that, and Damien's he's an expert. So it's great.
Good.
to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mike. On item number 3, human resources, item A, consider the approval of salary schedules for classified substitute support staff. Looking for a motion,
So moved.
trustee Irwin looking for a second,
Second.
trustee McDonald, discussion.
So this is coming forward to you. This has come forward in a prior year, but we adjusted it a bit more. What is in front of you is a recommended salary schedule for any substitute filling a classified position. We also narrowed it to specifically have the positions that are currently filled within the school district. So there might be a number of classifications that aren't filled that are on our salary schedule, but we're not asking to have those listed here. Those that are listed here are essential positions of which we believe we need to have them filled. And so when somebody's not there, we think we would need to have a substitute for that position because it affects students, it affects persons. So this opportunity to have a uniformed, approved salary schedule is really important to us because like we do with our certificated staff, there's a set rate that you pay. And so that when our payroll staff is setting up payroll, they can go straight and say, here's the amount we pay per hour for this position. And so it's just nice to kind of have that source document as a backup. We intend to actually send a cover letter with this to any person that subbed in a classified position during the course of last year and the start of this year to let them know if the board approves this evening, that this is the rate. So just so they're aware. So it's in full transparency to be sure people know what they're signing up for as they come into these substitute positions.
And Kespa, like you went.
I actually I meet with CASPA on a monthly basis, similar to how I meet with KTA. I presented this to them. They're well aware of it, thought it was appropriate, and we're appreciative to have uniform rates there. And they don't have any negotiation power on this, but just the transparency and just to be like, okay, so if this position is out, we believe it's an essential position. We're going to try to get a substitute if we can, and this is the rate that substitute will receive.
And sharing it with people that had those positions in the past isn't sort of retroactively going back to those positions, just saying in the future, if this comes up, this will be the schedule.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of approving the salary schedules for classified substitute support staff as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The salary schedule for classified substitute support staff is accepted as presented. Consider the approval, item B, consider the approval of the classified job description, food services assistant. Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald, discussion?
So this is a new job description that we created last year in collaboration with site administration. After it was created in draft form, we submitted it to KSD leadership and asked them to review and offer any feedback. Then they were appreciative that we were being proactive and that we had this position that we would be hiring for. So it's before you today now, just for your support and approval of the job description. And just a reminder, administration has the authority to create the job and the description that is in alignment with that job. The negotiations piece of this would be the salary which is assigned to that job. That would be what the KSPA might question us on. So.
Does this comprehensively list all the requirements for someone to be in that job?
Yeah, yes, and we also try to put the last bullet point under duties and responsibilities, other related duties as assigned.
Yeah.
We always want to have some level of flexibility with whomever, because you can't predict everything or itemize everything somebody's going to be expected to do on a day-to-day basis.
And I do notice the ability to perform physical work, carry and lift a maximum of 40 pounds.
And just to note how we got this job description, we actually pulled like positions across the county that were Mill Valley, Ross Valley School District, Novato, San Rafael, to try to come together with something that we felt made sense, and then had the draft, shared it with administration, and they offered feedback, and then shared it further with Tesla to get their feedback.
Any other questions? All those in favor of adopting this job description? Any opposed? The classified job description, food services assistant, is approved as presented. Item C, consider the approval of the updated KSD classified salary schedule to include new positions. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee McDonald looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin, discussion?
So the only change here is now that we have the position, we actually have to place it on the salary schedule. So if you noted on this position, it was identified as classification 10. And so if you look on the lines to the left, classification 10 now lists food service assistant. And then there's the rate, the hourly rates that are provided for that individual, or for that position.
Any questions? Any points of discussion? Looking for a vote to approve the updated KSD classified salary schedule to include the new position. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The salary schedule is adopted as presented. Moving on to policy. This is the meeting list. Okay. Item 4, A, discussion, addressing meeting modality for regular meeting, the Board of Trustees. Not looking for a motion, not looking for a second, because we're not acting on this. We're not voting on this.
No, just a discussion.
Okay. So this is a continuation of discussion, obviously, that we started, heard a little bit earlier. This is an opportunity to revisit our modality of presenting our meetings and sharing our meetings with the community. Raquel and staff have done a good job outlining sort of where we were before the COVID-19 pandemic, where we were during, and where we've been since. Are there any issues, Raquel, that you'd like to bring up about changes in regulation or other things that have happened since the pandemic that impact our discussion here?
Well, the pandemic presented us all with a unique situation in which public meetings like this, like the school board meeting, moved to a hybrid or virtual modality. And so what we also saw that happened during the pandemic is a significant increase in participation. There was a different level of ease for people, and there was also a different level of interest, I would say, at the time. Prior to that, the typical way in which a school board would operate is you wouldn't have this form of Zoom option available. You might have conference calls, and those would be noticed appropriately and posted on the agenda. And if somebody, a board or a trustee member, was out of the country or out of the state or out of the area, could have somebody join them wherever they're at for a public meeting. But that's what we would see from time to time. I attended various board meetings, the Nevada Unified School District, the Marin County Office of Education, as well as the Mill Valley School District. And of those, the only board that I would see anything televised was through the Nevada Unified School District, and it's because they actually had a TV station. So that was just part of their practice that they had pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. But for the county office and Mill Valley at those times, I didn't see those kinds of modalities. So what's come to our attention is just this board has talked about how do we want to continue to facilitate board meetings into the future, knowing now that we can revert back to what was a prior practice where we don't necessarily have a Zoom option available. The board discussed having us continue to offer an audio option so that we could have members of the public join in that manner, but that we wouldn't have the visual or the camera. And really the decision on the audio option was also under the premise that we could do it well, meaning that we would have appropriate speakers and microphones and setups and such. And so I will name that is something that our director of technology and I have been working on. The material has been ordered, but with the start of school, the priority has been, what do we need to get done for the classrooms? And so I think, fine, we'll get it done when we get it done. So, the question has come before this board again, do we want to look at our modality and offer the opportunity for the hybrid option where we have Zoom audio and visual. I will say we experienced it tonight. It's very challenging for my seat, and this is, you know, an I statement, to manage the Zoom as well as put up presentations and try to present and do it all in a seamless way. So the option would be hire additional staff to make that happen, which is an additional expense for our school district. We are investing in the sound system, but if we want to have a really good camera, you've seen the camera we have. We had a small camera and things were at distance, so we'd have to get really good visual cameras as well. And maybe we wouldn't be able to just put it on a stand. Maybe we would have to have a person holding it. So there's, I think, the increased costs and the challenge that it presents, depending on the technical difficulties that can come into play, are something that we have to be sure that we're mindful of and considering as we go through this process.
I do have one question. You know, I thought, I'm just going to go back to my notes. Hang on 1 second. When Mimi was speaking, she said one of the challenges was knowing who was speaking. And so I'm wondering, you know, with the sound system, is there, without every single time we talk saying this is trustee Irwin, is there a way to identify us as we're speaking? I think it's, I do think it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think
And
it's,
you know, we're here, we're elected officials, we are responsible for what we say here, and I think it's fair to have that identified, if that's possible, again, without additional staff. And you know, the cost, to me, would be taking something away from the students. If we put the resources in to this, we would be pulling it from somewhere else. We're not sort of operating with this big surplus here. So that would be the first priority. But if it were something relatively simple, I think that would be interesting to look at.
Cara, I think it's a good suggestion. I just don't see any other way except for before I speak, I say it, but then it gets into someone's gonna forget inevitably, and we just got to be okay with us going, hey, Cara, just before you continue, can you?
I'm not suggesting that we say this is Kari and I'm gonna speak. I'm just saying, is there, if we each have a microphone, let's just say, I don't know, is there a technical solution that would sort of say, for example, if you're on Zoom, you know, when you speak, your picture pops up, you know, so I don't know the technology that's out there. I'm just putting it out as maybe something to explore.
There was an observation about being open to people with disabilities accessing our meetings. I will point out that our agendas do include language about providing accommodations for people with disabilities. There is a contact number and an email for someone to reach out 48 hours in advance to request accommodations. So I think that is there. I think we could be a little bit better about making sure that people understand that the public comment section, that 5 o'clock, 5:02 or whatever it is, just after the Pledge of Allegiance and everything, is the window for public comment. I think being accommodating for people who are not able to physically be here to make their public comment, while that's always preferable, I think we should be quite open to receiving emails from community. Our emails are on the website and easily accessible. People have used that. Perhaps we can be slightly more proactive in making that known to people, you know, ways to address the board, ways to reach out, ways to share your thoughts with the board. Perhaps there's an opportunity for us to do a little bit better highlighting that option, highlighting the accommodations option. We have thought over time about the idea of having a community members email list, which I think now is something we have in place. Perhaps creating the opportunity for people to know about that and advertising that proactively in some of our communications. I think there are some things that we can do to be as receptive to our community's input without taking away from our focus on student achievement and without taking anything out of the out of the classroom. So I think I would be most comfortable, and I think it would be the best use of our limited resources and everything in Kentfield, being a small district. We don't have a TV station. We don't have an audiovisual club of someone who would be here running a camera and so on and so forth. To do the best we can to make those to make our agendas online as useful and accessible as possible, to make our audio recordings as accessible as possible, remind our community about the opportunity to join an email group to stay apprised of agendas and things. Remind people about the availability of our emails for comment to us. Be vigilant about that 5 o'clock time to make sure that people know that's the time they can speak about things. And have of course the accommodations that we've offered in our agendas. I feel at this time that's the best and most appropriate use of our modality for our meetings, but I welcome any other observations or comments.
I'm in agreement with that. Yeah.
I agree. And I feel like, especially for the parents and the guardians in the community, like, for example, the district newsletter yesterday, I thought highlighted it more clear about the board meeting and that you can always contact the trustees. And if you want it Raquel, can you correct me if I'm wrong? If you want it printed like in our packets, they can do it before 72 hours. So, I feel like people do have different ways to reach out to us. And so I support what Trustee Riedel is saying as well.
And reminding everyone, we do have the communication protocol that we've committed to, which is to be responsive to emails, and we have the focus of that, speaking with one voice, usually through the president in responding to emails and things. I think we can continue to make ourselves available in public spaces, in places where here, as well as school events and things, where we can be recognized by the community and make ourselves available to our constituents.
The other thing I'd like to just point out, I do appreciate what we got to hear from our member of the public related to just their concerns around our current modalities or our current plan. But I do think what has been highlighted is that this board has made multiple attempts to continue to push out information in a very transparent way. So there is nothing that we're hiding or trying not to get out to the community. So I just want to go on record to put that out there. And also the process of us not having a live stream is actually not an outlier when you look at what's happening across our county. 7 other LEAs, local educational agencies in the county, are also not live streaming. We are at least offering audio live stream, but those 7 are not doing them. So the districts that are tending to, it's their infrastructure, they're larger district, they have more staff, they have a different scenario, or they're more rural. The districts that tend to not be are smaller in nature, and they just don't, similar to the reasons why we don't have the capacity to run it the way in which we would really want to represent. So just wanted to point that out as well. And that was from a survey that was done in February of 23. So that was the most recent one we have.
Any other points of discussion on this topic?
The only thing I was gonna say is I felt like some of the things that she brought up we're actually already doing. So she says like a record of what actually transpired. Well, we do post the audio from the meeting. So some of these things we're doing and maybe just need to be more clear about what we're already doing that she asked for. So.
And I will say, thanks to Raquel and Mary's efforts to strengthen the agenda and really put a lot of the things that we've started this year, putting a lot of the information into the agenda, making it even more accessible, hopefully, and more clear.
Yeah.
And I think we'll strive to continue to do that extent we can.
Yep.
Moving on to item B, this action item to consider the approval of the interdistrict transfer request from Nevada School District into the Kentfield School District for 22-23. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
trustee Irwin,
Mhm.
looking for a second,
Second.
trustee McDonald. Any discussion? You do have in your packets the form
Yeah.
that was filled out. The guardian's not here.
And did not provide, an email or letter with the explanation.
This was pulled at the
It's
last
very-
board meeting,
Probably
because we
speak
got
closer
it.
to my
at-
job.
Yeah, so, and they did not know additional communication, and there has been an attempt to reach out to
Got
the
it.
individual.
Okay.
But this is not a current or a previous kindergarten
Mhm.
student that was served, we were serving in our school district. Last year would have been TK, so, but this is not a student that's been served by the Kentfield School District.
Okay.
And it has been this board's common practice to not accept inter-district transfers like this, where there's not a connection to community or history of being a student with us. We are very much a community-funded school and supported school. And we have felt that with the constraints on our resources and our space and everything, that we've prioritized the members of our community and more connected to our family here at Kentfield School District. So a reminder that a vote for this is an approval of the inter-district transfer, and a vote against would be a decline. All those in favor? All those opposed? Nay. The inter-district transfer is declined. Thank you for your efforts on reaching out. Item C, consider the amended LCAP, which reflects additional data and clarification as requested by the Marion County Office of Education. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee McDonald looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin. Discussion.
So as you may recall, in the June meeting, the May and June the second May meeting and only June meeting, the proposed budget is presented to the board and as well as the LCAP public hearings and the first reads of those documents. And then the board approves an LCAP and a budget, and then it's sent to the county office for their review. We received our review letter back from the county, and there is a certain criteria that they are looking at when they're going to approve, and one of those is following the template that is provided by the CBE. There were some components of our template that we needed to update, and they asked for some more clarifying language. So Michael filled in some areas where the expenditure tables were of our LCAP, a percentage, and then I offered a little bit more language related to some of our increased and improved services. Those were the main things. They gave us some feedback on other areas that we could expand on, but that's not something that needed to be brought forward today. We'll use that feedback as we develop our next LCAP, but this is presented to you for consideration for this evening.
So, and staff recommends approval of the amended LCAP as presented. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
The amended LCAP is accepted as presented. Item D, review and approve board policy BP 4033 lactation accommodation for a second reading. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Discussion.
No discussion.
This is good
Uh,
to go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The board policy of 4033 is accepted as presented.
Can I say something before you go on?
Yes.
Just to note, these board policies that we're going through right now is all a second read. And there was at our last board meeting, there were no suggested changes. So no changes have been made since the last time we met. Staff was also, just so you know, our administrative staff were provided some information about these board policies before even the first read, and they too didn't have any suggested changes or anything. So this has gone through a vetting process.
Yeah. Great.
And a reminder to everyone interested and everyone here that these are often suggestions to stay current with changes in law or update other statewide policies and issues through the service that California School Boards Association. Moving on to item E, review and approve board policy 5141.5 mental health for a second reading. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee McDonald looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee Irwin. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The Board BP 5141.5 is approved as presented. Moving on to item F, review and approve the revision to board policy 4112.2 certification. This is a second reading. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Any questions? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The board policy 4112.2 is revised, is accepted as presented. Item G, review and approve the revision to administrative regulation 4112.2 certification, second reading. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. This is the AR that's connected to that form of that other board policy. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The revision to administrative regulation 4112.2 certification is approved as presented. Item H, review and approve the revision to exhibit 4112.9 employee notification. Second reading. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The revision to exhibit 4112.9 employee notifications is accepted as presented. Item I, review and approve the revision to exhibit 5145.6 parent guardian notifications. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Any questions or discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The revision to exhibit 5145.6 is accepted as presented. Item J, review and approve the revision to board policy BP 6174, education for English learners. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Any discussion or questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? BP 6174, education for English learners is accepted as presented. Item K, review and approve the revision to administrative regulation 6174, education for English learners. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Irwin looking for a second.
Second.
Trustee McDonald. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The AR 6174 is accepted as presented. Moving on to item P, governance, item number 1, board meeting highlights. Well, I think we had the opportunity to highlight our commitment to facilities and financials tonight, both through the excellent report from Michael and the very valuable overview and report that was provided on facilities. It's such an important part of our role to stay on top of those kinds of expenses and those kind of commitments to our facilities. And I think a reminder to everyone about the warm, safe and dry is a good
Yeah.
reminder to all of us. Part of the reason we're here, is to make
Mhm.
sure we create that environment.
I think it's demonstrated the need, to start to get some money into the deferred maintenance fund. So I assume that will be a future topic. But I think it really highlighted that some of these things are going to have to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
That's right. Other highlights that, I think it was great to hear once again about what's happening at the school sites.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's-
Yeah.
It's a lot, and I mean that in such a great way.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just they're really, I don't know, we should be super, super proud. And I just am reminded, I think trustees have said over and over, we need to get this out there. And so, we've adjusted, Annie, you mentioned our newsletter. We've adjusted our newsletter approach a little bit in an effort to really push families to read what the principals are saying, because they have such, important information that they need parents to know. And you heard Maria mention that she's planning to do that math night.
Yep.
And Grant has the principal chat this Friday. So it's just remarkable.
Yeah.
Really, really remarkable. Their leadership is
It's super commendable.
I think the admin in classrooms like ties into that really well. You'll know your child is like known, their classroom is known, their friends are known, all of that. I think it's a very unique structure too.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely worth highlighting.
Yeah.
And that was just one of many examples of things that the the site administration was trying and focusing on what was working and evolving. And I mean, the idea of rotating all the enrichments and opportunities at Kent to make sure that everyone has those
Exactly.
exposed to those various enrichments was super powerful. for me. So
Yeah.
we're probably throwing too much at you in terms of highlights.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Lots of things to focus on.
Yeah.
Any future agenda items that came up for people tonight?
I have a random one.
Yeah.
So I got an update in Redfin recently, and I clicked on a house that was in my area, and I went down and I looked at the rating of our school in that,
Oh, the grade school.
and I was like, that is not representative of what I'm seeing here. And I don't exactly know where that data source comes from or how we impact that, but it just feels like that should better represent what I think is happening here. And I don't exactly know how to make that change, but I'll volunteer to research that.
Okay.
But if there's something that we need to do as a school, I don't know, but like, I just don't know.
I noticed that too, given I've been on Redfin a lot. I was like, that's a bummer.
So the great
The grade
schools or one of
schools
the other rating
Yeah.
scoring.
I think this one,
Yeah, niche, yeah.
yeah, it'd be interesting.
I know it's
to reach
random,
out and
but-
find out how these are
Yeah.
assigned and what data they're using.
Yeah.
Is it up to date? Is it accurate?
Exactly.
Is it?
Yeah.
So maybe not an agenda item, but.
Not agenda
future
item, but
report.
just,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to do with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
certainly think the deferred maintenance fund and, the facilities work is
Yeah.
gonna be on this agenda probably all year long.
That's
right.
But,
And we'll certainly have a lot more financial updates coming.
mhm.
We heard about the math.
Yep.
Pilot night, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah.
That provides an opportunity, the appropriate opportunity to discuss that rather than put it on an agenda for us.
We have still talked about the profile of a
Oh,
KSD
yeah.
student.
The sort of like
yeah.
empathy
The
for
integrator,
him.
the whole human
I'd like to-
approach thing.
Yeah, we have a showcase. I don't have it in front of me, but we will have a showcase. I want to say it's music.
Okay,
What month are we in? We're in September.
Yeah.
So it's October. I believe it is going to be middle school music.
okay.
And so we will have a showcase at the next meeting, and then, I think that maybe to give some time, it's March when we will be having the social emotional showcase, and maybe that's where we can do some highlighting. That'll give some people some time to get ready for it related to the student profile. Because I do think, that, you heard me mention tonight, I haven't had a chance to talk to the
Yeah.
principals about that conversation we had, but
And we do have progress monitoring as one of our board interests.
that's in December.
And then we'll start to hear about that in summer and then again in the spring.
Yeah, so I may bring high level report on the CAS.
Oh, okay.
scores.
Oh,
So everybody
nice.
has that already, but it's gonna
Yeah.
start to come out, the dashboard and all
Yeah.
that information.
Oh,
will be-
nice.
Okay, moving on, if we can, to reports from trustees. Trustee Irwin,
I do not have a report this evening.
Trustee Joseph.
I don't really have much. I went to meet your teacher night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back to school, which was fantastic. But nothing else. to report. I'm gonna reach out to my grade level chairs in the coming weeks here.
Excellent. And you will have noticed on the sheets connected to the most recent governance report. It was in your weekly, the
The
grade
names.
level
Oh, yeah.
chairs.
Yes, yeah.
Reminding everyone that that's in one place.
That's right.
Trustee McDonald.
I had held off on reaching out to my grade level chairs, so it was going on with
Yeah.
me, so I'll circle with you and Raquel on what we should do there based in the next couple of days.
Great.
I am going to the Kick, Orange Theory Fitness
Oh, good.
extravaganza, so I'll see you all there.
I love
See me
that.
there.
I'm busy that week.
I'll wear
Um,
I'll wear a GoPro, so you can all.
Yeah, funny.
So I don't have a report from my grades, but I would like to share a little bit about Home Key, which is the permanent supportive housing that you are aware of down at 1251 South Alicio. I had the opportunity to go on a tour of the building before it opened recently.
We must have gone at different times.
Yeah,
Because I was in the earlier session.
it was kind of a window.
Oh, okay.
And so I went and was able to tour the facility. I'm not sure what your impression was, but they clearly did a very good job building what presents sort of like a college dorm in a way. Wide hallways, every room has windows to the outside. Some views of the water on one side, some views of interior courtyards. Individual single occupancy rooms, so they present like a relatively small hotel room with a microwave and maybe a dorm fridge and those kind of things. Then there's a large community kitchen that's there and a community room that's there. It seemed appropriately finished and built out as you'd expect. The project is in its final phases before occupancy. The first people are supposed to move in this week. And it's a reminder, it's a 44 individuals in these 44 units. And so the County of Marin has a intake funnel that their case managers and other people throughout the county recommend people to apply for these places. And they'd had a certain number of applications, they had a certain number of acceptances and so on and so forth. They expect to be fully occupied by early November. They have a very tight clock that they're actually legally mandated to fill all the spots in a certain amount of time. They have plenty of demand for this. They do expect that a lot of these individuals be older, chronically homeless people. There is equipment there. They are leasing these apartments in exchange for 30% of their take-home pay from their jobs that they are working. They're encouraged to work. They're encouraged. They are required to commit 30% of their pay to serve as their payment of rent. There are expectations and rules and policies about behavior and there. I will say that those of us on the community advisory group felt like there was not a lot of latitude for adjustments to the plan and in response to our feedback and observations. There were a few things that got committed to. One was what they call a community ambassador, who will be on their property, just staying within the outlines of their property, but outside the front door. So in the parking lot, along the street sort of front, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that was an idea of having an extra set of eyes and ears to ensure that the interaction between the residents and the community was appropriate.
And that's during the day. Sorry, that's during the day.
During the day.
So there's nobody there.
There is staff inside 24 hours a day, but not outside the facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's not permanent either, is it, or was it?
That's a commitment for 1 year.
1 year, yeah, that's right.
The other thing that was agreed to through our initiative was quarterly stakeholder meetings, local property owners, the people who help run the Bon Air Center, the various law enforcement agencies, the various support agencies providing services to this community. We'll get together on a quarterly basis. I'm attending those meetings. There was a request, and so that'll be an ongoing thing. Nancy Vernon of Katie Rice's office is running those, and the meetings are being held at the Central Marin Police right by Piper Park. We had asked for and wanted to ensure that we had visibility into the impact on any potential impact on public safety that's going to come as a result of this pretty significant change to that community and that neighborhood. So we'd asked for a baseline of data in terms of calls and police responses and so on and so forth. We got that at the most recent meeting, and we'll get another update here just in a couple of weeks. I think it's even as soon as next Friday is our first meeting. This was a sort of a planning meeting for it, and our first official meeting is next week. So we'll be vigilant about ensuring that our community's concerns are heard, any public safety concerns are heard, and that we are keeping our students safe on the way to and from school, and our community healthy with the introduction of this new facility.
I do have a question about the hours for the community manager. Does that start in the morning prior to when our kids are heading to school?
There was quite a lot of discussion about this because people felt that early morning to and from school hours was relevant.
Yeah.
And that would be sort of the 7:30 to
Right.
9 o'clock hour,
That's
and then
right.
again in the 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock hour.
Exactly.
And even extending a little bit further into the evening because people would be, going to sports or whatever and then traveling home. Unfortunately, the structure of an 8-hour day and staffing for a position like that, which is quite difficult now, restricted them from feeling confident that they could find a staffing for the facility, position that had those kind of split hours. So this is not expected to be a facility that has a lot of early morning activity. And so they're expecting to have that a little bit more like office hours, maybe a 9 to 5 kind of thing, perhaps catching a little bit of the home, but not as much of on the way to school.
With this opening, are we going to revisit the crossing guard?
So there was some follow-up that was done with the, that subcommittee group and some conversations with, staff from the city of Larkspur, because that is in the Larkspur, jurisdiction, and there is no entry point to revisit.
So this is not considered a change in status that we have 44 more individuals?
No, so they're not, we tried to see if they would kind of bring it back up to do another assessment there, and there's no interest. We tried it from a couple different avenues, through the CAG, the Community Advisory Group, also through their officials at the City of Larkspur office, also through the county, Katie Rice. All three were not receptive to.
Be interesting to see if there is more foot traffic there, because it's not just our kids that are going to be walking back and forth, and if the count changes, does that give us the opportunity to revisit?
They don't do the count every year. I want to say it's every other year they do the count. And I think that the big reason why they're not revisiting, at least that the read I got, was because the only reason a crossing guard was put there to begin with was because of the construction on that bridge. And had that not been in place, it would not have been a spot that would have qualified for a crossing guard. It was simply because that was happening at that time, and that was a more dangerous location. So that's why they had it at that time. Now it's a different circumstance because it's that new facility, but there really was no appetite to.
That intersection, along with a lot of other intersections along Sir Francis Drake, were deemed to have improved sightlines and safety and visibility and so on and so forth, because of the work that had been done on Sir Francis Drake and on that, at that intersection, those lights being there and being more clear and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of thing that influences the scoring. And the addition of these 44 is not going to trigger a review.
Because the counts isn't the adults, it's the kids, school age students.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they don't even count Marine Catholic kids. It's the younger kids that they count, and they don't count preschool kids. They count school age kids.
I just wonder about the kids going through the park after school. I have concerns.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So one of the issues that's complicated about that location is it's very shared jurisdiction.
Yeah.
The park is the rangers. The sheriff is a certain park. CHP is part of it. And then Central Marin Police is the other part of it. So unfortunately, there's not a single point of contact or responsibility.
We can't ask, can you please post somebody at least for a couple weeks till we.
They have committed to an increased presence for the first 3 months.
Once, and we said that we wanted to know when that time frame was going to start ticking, because we don't want the 3 months time frame to start when there's only 3 new.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you have any influence over time of day? No.
Rest assured that this community action group was trying to be as proactive as possible and didn't feel like there was a lot of flexibility in the program or plan. I do believe that we'll see an increased sheriff presence. I do believe we'll see an increased ranger presence. The park, for example, is closed at night and visited by private security during the night. The pathways will see more presence. There is a robust security presence at the hospital, it was right there on the corner. We certainly didn't get everything that we asked. Annie, any reports or committees?
I told you guys already about the basic principal chat. The only
Yeah,
thing
that's right.
was Maria was saying that they're going to do the math fair, which is separate from that math like curriculum night,
Okay.
that they're gonna bring that back. So I thought that was really exciting. So there's like a student component and in the evening, like families can come to basic and do like math games or whatever it is. And then I'm visiting 8th grade classrooms at the beginning of October. And then Jill Klima, the 7th grade, she reached out, so I'll make visits probably around the same time. And that's it.
And it looks like our committees are all jumping into action, so it's starting this week.
Yeah, but big week next week.
Yeah, I got J-Lock tomorrow. And
Can I just make one?
Yes.
I had a request. There is the bilingual resource fair on September 21st from 5 to 7. Yvette Villarreal, our community liaison, who is the person that is coordinating that event, asked if the board of trustees might be interested in having a table.
She emailed us to attend, but
Yeah,
saying
she
to let
did,
people, yeah.
Yeah, so she asked about a table, so I was gonna put it and follow up with you guys, but just giving you the heads up, if you have availability that night, it's a Thursday night, 5 to 7. So I'll send more information, but I think it would be great to have a table for the board. And this goes to, again, making trustees accessible to members of our public.
Yeah.
So.
pertinent dates, I think we have a pertinent date sheet here. Highlighting some of the upcoming meetings and note the board workshop on the 6th. Before our next meeting on the 10th.
The other thing that we'll add to this is the principal chats.
Please, thank you.
That so that you can have that, and typically it's Mondays for Basic and Fridays for Kent. And
Think so.
Okay. I'm gonna try to go.
I love the principal
Yeah,
chats.
they're
I wanted to go to
nice.
site council,
Yeah.
meetings are awesome. By
Yeah.
the way, I wanted to go today, but obviously I was frantically
Yeah.
driving my
Yeah.
child around. But I will say it's a little bit of a bummer when those are scheduled the same day as the board meetings, the site council meetings. But that was today, right?
Yeah.
Kent site
Yeah.
council was today.
Yeah. I don't know that can be helped, but
the only other option we could do is when that's the case, we could do closed session after the board meeting instead of before, because really it's closed session. They're done by 5 o'clock because the principals come.
Let's talk about that
We don't
agenda
want
planning
everybody
next
to
time.
stay till
Let's
Yeah.
remember that today.
Yeah.
Debriefing meetings and norms. I thought we had a good back and forth with everybody. I thought we had good opportunities to have questions. There were some aspects that were celebrated. Obviously, it's gone through quite a meeting, but we had a lot to cover with the board maintenance and the financials and robust presentations from Basic and Kent. Anything else that anyone else can highlight as improvements or something, an observation about the meeting?
Can I chime in?
Please.
And I know this is typically trustees, but
Well,
one of the things I realized we did different, and I apologize that we did it differently, is the presentation by Michael was done during the action item. Typically, presentations are all done at the front part. And so in retrospect, maybe we should have had it up there, but that was also an item, his presentation was an item that needed to be approved, so presentations aren't necessarily always approved items either, so I don't know if we talk about that in agenda planning, but typically presentations, we try to keep them up in the front end, so that way all of our,
Can see.
everybody can see it
Yeah.
you're on,
oh,
right?
I see.
So,
It's a deeper pool of people.
yeah,
That goes back to connection and.
Yeah.
community.
yeah. So,
I was wondering that too, actually. Yeah,
yeah, because normally we do it the other way.
exactly. Yeah.
recessing this meeting at 9:52.
8:52.
8:52.
David, 9:52.